On sale December 17th.
Bushiroad!
Cardfight Vanguard Overdress! Power up your deck with these new cards! Journey forth with your new allies! Booster Pack! Advance of Intertwined Stars! Coming soon! Bushiroad!
Cardfight Vanguard Overdress! It's your leader, Mirai! Look how cool Bob Sartre is with the new arms card! Start deck, Sealed Blaze Maiden, coming soon! Bushiroad!
Hi Honda.
Hi Julius.
Thank you so much for taking out some time out of your busy schedule to join me in this Coffee with Bushiroad series.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So, could you tell me a bit about the work you do in Bushiroad?
Well, I do sales and logistics, but I'm mainly on the logistics side.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you a lot more questions regarding that because I think your work is mainly a lot of people don't see or don't understand what goes on behind the scenes in what makes the games possible. Yeah, because I think there's a lot of logistics and transportation involved. But before that, we're gonna dig right into our pastries and coffee and tea. What would you like?
Coffee, please.
Coffee? Coffee for you? Okay,
sure.
cool. Okay, you can smell this. It smells good.
Wow.
Yeah, this smell really wakes you up. Yeah.
Fragrant.
Yeah. Go ahead and help yourself to whichever one that you like.
Alright. Which one we like?
No, you go ahead.
Me?
Yeah, I'll pick whatever that's remaining.
Alright, so I'll go for this.
I'm a good host.
You want?
So Huanta, I understand that even before you joined Bushiroad, to work for Bushiroad, I think you played a lot of Bushiroad card games.
Yeah.
What games do you play?
I play mainly Weiss Schwarz, Vanguard, and a little bit of Buddy Fight.
Oh, so you actually play our three main titles.
Yeah.
Oh, when did you start playing?
For Weiss, I started playing I think somewhere around 2008, 2009 kind of time when it first started out in Japan. Yeah.
Wow, that's like almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow. And then for Vanguard?
Vanguard, I think I also started when it first came out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So you actually played Weiss first.
Yeah.
How do you get to know Weiss Schwarz?
So there was kind of like a community get together to learn the game. Like they brought some Weiss products from Japan, so I brought it over to Singapore, and they actually promoted the event, like come down to learn, and they actually sell some of the stuff they got in Japan. So yeah, that's how I got wine of Weiss, and I started learning, and I liked the game.
Which Weiss Schwarz titles are you currently enjoying?
I'm really enjoying the Fujimi Fantasia set right now, especially the deck with 8 standbys. It's very interesting. And also, I really like playing Goblin Slayer, especially the Goblin Slayer deck. The overall card advantage and the abilities is very flavorful. It has made a huge impact in the game itself, and soon English player can get their hands on the series. It's coming out in English. Yeah, for Goblin Slayer.
Wow, I think players can really look forward to that. Yeah. Do you still remember your very first deck? What title was it?
It was Fate Stain Night Trial deck.
Wow.
Yeah, it was so long ago.
Yeah. And ever since then, you just continued
Yeah.
playing the game. And now, right now, you are actually working for Bushiroad.
Yeah.
Wow, this is kind of like, it's coming to a full circle.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Vanguard clan?
My favorite clan would be Dark Irregulars.
Oh.
No. I love the overall theme of the deck, artwork, card abilities. Like soul charging, it thins your deck. So, deck thinning is very important in card games. You get to draw into more important cards, or it might go the other way. Like it makes everything looks exciting. Yeah, that's about.
That's your favorite.
Yes.
Ever.
Yeah.
Okay. No, back then when you are playing Bushiroad card games, do you actually think that you would, or maybe you hope that you will be able to work for Bushiroad?
So Thinking that I would be working for the company would be no, but hoping that I would is a yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And back then, maybe you thought, oh, maybe it would be great if I can work for Bushiroad one day.
Yeah.
Do you have like a job position in mind, or do you just, as long as I'm working for the company that produces this great card games for me, I'm fine. I'm fine with that.
Everyone would want to have a part in creating a game, so maybe a development role would be good. So that's what I think that every card gamers would want when they play the game or they like the game a lot, is to have a impact on the game, on the development side, like card abilities, like you want to make cards that you love. Yeah, I guess that's it. But I didn't expect like I'll be working in other aspects of the company. Yeah.
So how did you actually get the opportunity, to work for Bushiroad?
So I was already before my national service. I was already going around helping to do demo sessions, maybe helping out at events. So when I came out of national service, I actually did part-time in Bushiroad. I was waiting for my university application. So after that, it has a bit of waiting. So I was doing fine in Bushiroad part-timing. Unfortunately, on the day I received a call from the university, I didn't get in. So I was kind of very sad, this kind, like very disappointed. But luckily, there was an opening in the sales team, and I seized the day and I applied for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So Manda, what's your day-to-day like in the office?
So I start out the day with replying emails. After that, arranging shipments to distributors, packing of PR cards and sending them if there's any. Other than that, I also handle office shipping. So it's intercompany shipment. It's not like business-wise.
Yeah. So you actually have to do a lot of shippings of PR cards,
Yeah.
to our shops around the world.
It's mostly to our distributors and our overseas offices, and then they'll ship it to the shops.
What are some of the challenges that you faced during the course of your work?
Yeah, prior to shipping, there's a lot of layers of work, a lot of steps to be done in the production cycle. So if something were to happen, like maybe before shipping, I'll have to rework, reschedule all the shipments, or even rebook because it's already very last minute. Yeah, and it kind of snowballs into like this gets delayed. If this gets delayed, something after that might get delayed too. So I have to plan out everything, make sure everything goes smoothly out.
Definitely. I think it's inevitable that something will go wrong down the production line, and then I think you will have to come up with a lot of different ways, adapt, just kind of like deal with all these last minute changes.
Yeah.
So kind of like putting out fires.
yeah, exactly. Putting out fires.
Yeah. That sounds like a lot of work, and I guess it must be so demoralizing, for a part of your work to be undone, and then you have to do it all over again.
Yeah.
How do you get over that?
You need to be patient. Like you can't rush over things because it's a long process, and you need to be resilient because you can't crumble in your work halfway, and everything will snowball. And once your work is overdue, more works will come in. Work is never finished, so you kind of like you have to do it now, slow and steady. But you just have to keep going through the motion, keep pulling through it. It's kind of everyday challenges. Yeah.
Wow. This reminds me of a quote. I think it was, "If you're going through hell, keep going." Yeah. Because I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think it's kind of similar to what you just said. Because if you're going through hell, why would you stay there?
Yeah.
Just, keep going forward. Yeah. Then you can get out of there as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great
very
point.
true.
Yeah. Since you play so much of Bushiroad card games, do you think that has actually helped you in your current job?
Yeah, that actually helps me a lot in the sales side of my work. Having knowledge in the products itself helps me better sell the product, so I can pitch better. I can pinpoint the unique points, the strength of the products, and I can explain it to my distributors. I can even explain it to like my colleagues to make them understand better. Yeah, this kind.
Yeah, that's good because when you're playing the card games, maybe 10 years ago, you never expect yourself to be landing a job in the company that make the games that you play. Yeah. And you did, of course, you never even expect that just by playing card games that would actually help you in your career. Oh, so really, I'm happy for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Besides arranging logistics for for shipping to our distributors, I mean, you also handle the logistics for our regionals in Singapore.
Yeah.
When we have an event, we actually have to pack everything and then send it to the venue.
Yeah.
How's it like? What's the challenge in that?
Transporting all the stuff that we need, all the event items to the event hall is not really a very difficult task. But sometimes events they need things last minute, and you have to make a rush for it. And when you're rushing for time, sometimes you forget where it is, or you can't find it. You get very flustered. It's one of the few examples I have.
So yeah, you reminded me, and because I think recently I keep seeing you flying for work, and I believe recently you went to Gen Con held in USA for a B2B conference kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe that a lot of your work are done through emails and telephone calls, talking to our distributors, and then you finally met them in person. How was that like?
Through emails, you don't really get to know them. It's all formal, it's all business. So when you get to finally meet them and get them to know on a more personal level, so it's very satisfying to know, like, okay, so now I get to know more about this person, and we get to work together even closer. I think that's very satisfying.
How were they? Were they nice to you?
Yeah, they took great care of me.
Did they bring you around for good food in USA?
Yeah, we went for meetings through dinner. Yeah.
Meetings and dinner.
Yeah.
I would like that.
Yeah.
So you get to travel a lot for work. I imagine that must be very exciting for you, because I think, not a lot of jobs out there actually offer this incentive, this slight perk of being able to travel for work. How's that like for you?
So I enjoy meeting new people and people, our fans, card game fans. So I think that's one perk that I really find refreshing when I travel for work, even though I'm tired, but all the smiles on their face, like when they play the tournament, give me a sense of satisfaction. And just being able to travel for work is a blessing. So I'm very thankful and very grateful for this opportunity. Yeah.
But I imagine at the same time, it must be tiring. Of course, it's enjoyable on one hand, but especially if you fly long hours to from Singapore to US, about a 20 hours flight, give or take. I imagine it must be tiring, and then you have to help out with the events, attend some conference.
It's kind of like giving back to the community. You're helping the game grow, and you're helping yourself grow too. You go through the tiring days of work. After that, you get to recover. It's all the experiences you get. It's very memorable. And flying overseas means I get to work with colleagues that are overseas that I don't get the chance to see them. So getting to know them better is very rewarding.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're joining us today for BROV Premium for the EU stage for the top 8. It is nice and early, 9:30 a.m. And boys, how are we feeling after all the nice games we had yesterday? NA is concluded, and some of us had different experiences on the NA side, but it was all a great time. How are we doing?
I think from my end, I had a whole lot of fun playing on the NA circuit. I don't know how Ben feels about his run. How do you feel, buddy?
Well, I was gonna say, I think Chris, you as the only person with a positive record out of the three of us are the only one who had a different experience. Uh, I mean, it was all right. Like, having played in a tournament again after like what, a year and a half of no major events was, a nice way of getting back into the swing of things. Especially, after considering like the games that we watched on the EU side, it was like really invigorating and feeling like, okay, yeah, like seeing these guys play their games and like watching their decks perform was like I kind of want to try that myself. And for JJ and myself, it didn't work out quite so well, but we stuck with it at least until midnight, and then we conked out while you had to go on stream on your own. So sorry, not sorry,
Man, y'all don't even know about the moment that Ben went to sleep and I went on stream to play my round 8. From then on, everything went. I just wasn't winning anymore. But it wasn't even like the round I played on stream was so good. Like I completely got outplayed. It was perfectly well played. Like my mistakes, I own up to them. But then the last round of Swiss, it's like my last round of Swiss started at 2:50 a.m. and the exhaustion just like just hit me. I was like, did an action? I was like, oh wait, I shouldn't have done that. Played a card. I should have kept that. Did something else? Like, oh no, I should have not done that. And it's just the whole time I was like, oh, I want to go to bed. I want to go to bed. I have so much respect for the players that not only play in like for example EU players playing AO or NA players playing EU, like that human factor is so like I don't know, like it's not talked about enough. It's crazy how hard it is to run it. And then the people doing the 3 region gauntlets, I ran into some opponents that were doing it yesterday and they were like, yeah, this is my 3rd region. I'm struggling. And I was like, these people are crazy. Like their love for the game and their passion for Vanguard is just, it's through the roof. It's crazy. It's out of this world. And you really have to respect it. And I'm glad, the AO guys also had a nice top 8. There's a lot of cool decks in top 8 that did quite well. So I think, for you guys as well, you got to enjoy a lot of great V Premium action this weekend. And of course, there's going to be lots more coming in 4 weeks' time when we come back for Standard. And of course, today we got the EU top 8 followed by the NA top 8 and a few hours after that. But gentlemen, before we take a look at everything else and start taking a look at the deck list and all that stuff, let's go over today's format. Let's talk about what are the players expecting to see today. So of course, first, let's take a look at the schedule for this weekend, what you guys have been watching so far, and what you can look forward to seeing as well. So as you can see, this weekend is the V Premium weekend. Yesterday, we had the Swiss Best of 1 for all 3 regions, and today we have a top 8 cut. We already concluded AO. Right now it's going to be EU, and then we're going to go to NA. That one will be starting at around 9 a.m. PST, 9:30 PST, something along those lines. And so it's going to be very exciting. Make sure you tune in, see all the cool decks, and don't miss it. But JJ, what do we have coming up for the next 2 weeks in January?
All right, so for the next coming new year, hopefully you guys got enough year fill with your holiday dinners, enjoying time with your family, because there is going to be way more Vanguard and way more Bushiroad games coming up soon. It's going to be the 8th and 9th of January 2022. It's going to be Cardfight Vanguard Standard, the new format of Overdress. And then it's going to be the 15th and 16th of January. It's going to be Good Games of Weiss Schwarz.
Yes, sir. That's going to be very exciting. And Ben, there's a big reason why all 3 of us EU casters signed up for the V Premium event. It's those sweet prizes, man. Talk to us about the prizes.
Absolutely. So I think the main reason you signed up is for that lovely, lovely Chronojet, as everyone can see on the screen there, that beautiful Japanese VMC artwork. Of course, like I said before, the main difference between BRO and in-person events is way more promos are being given out. 4 copies for first place, 2nd for second, 2 copies for second, and 1 for third. That's something that I really hope they maintain going forward when we go back to in-person events. I remember back in 2019 having to try hard and sweat really bad for that Harmonix Messiah. Mm-hmm. So if there is a Brandgate promo coming out soon, hopefully I won't need to try as hard, but we'll see. Of course, there's also the booster boxes. Everyone in top 3 will get a display of Clan Collection Volume 3 coming out next year. Very excited for that. A few good cards. Perhaps some of them they'll be winning with a new Clan Collection base deck this weekend, and they'll be able to go for a new deck next year as well. Who knows? And of course, last but not least, there's that beautiful certificate that we've all come to expect from top 4.
Exactly. So yeah, that Chrono Jet, man, it's beautiful. I wanted it. I wanted it so bad. I got so close, but sadly, a bit, too close, burnt up by the sun. But it was still an amazing event. And now as we're wrapping up the V Premium weekend, I say wrapping up, but we still have 2 top 8s to look through. I also want to ask you guys, since we made the caster run throughout NA with V Premium, what are we taking to standard? What decks are we bringing to standard?
I like controlling my own fate, so Madame Hexorb and I are probably going to be rolling up our sleeves, unless I can get my Bashiravaga support, then maybe I might be taking that.
Very nice. Very nice. That's good. I think Buff Saga is something I want to mess with as well, because we've seen a few in Japan. There's a few of the WGP qualifiers where some people were able to secure their qualification with Buff Saga, like the start deck combined with the set 3 stuff, without even having the new weapons and things. So I really want to mess around with it too. But that's quite cool. I've seen you playing a lot of Hexorb, so I have some friends that really love the deck too. And especially after set 3, I feel like it really got some of the tools it really needed, like a Persona Right Searcher.
Yeah, it did come into its own, because it did have a whole lot of issues of being able to get into your grade 3s, your Persona Right, making, 80% of your plays happen was a pretty big issue that it had, and I'm very happy with the set 3 support.
Yeah, I think any Hexor player should be very happy with the support, because it really is just helps it to kind of like be at the same kind of level as a lot of the other top decks in the standard format, in my opinion. So it's gonna be a great time. What about you, Ben? What are you planning to take for standard?
That's something I'm still deciding. I mean, for V, I wasn't trying as hard as you, Mr. Gavrel player, from the Bang Dream player, playing Roselia. Unfortunately, I don't know if there is a deck in Standard that allows me to quite, quote-unquote, express my individuality the same way. So it's probably just going to be coin flipping between the 2 decks I own, being Lauren Errol and Orfist. Chances are I might take it a little bit more seriously, given the disaster that was my rounds with Bang Dream. So I think we're likely going to see me playing Lauren Errol.
Oh, that's good. You'll be a valuable testing partner to everyone. I think everyone's looking to also beat Lorna Roll going into the events. That's something everyone wants to test against. But also Orfist, there was one of the big events in Japan where actually I think it was the same weekend as or the week before, we had BRO Premium, where an Orfist player took it all undefeated, which was pretty crazy. So I think there's definitely some good hope for us fellow Orfist enjoyers as well. But that's cool. I think for myself, I'm also not sure how hard do I want to put do I want to put on the light try hard pants, or do I want to put them up all the way to when you pull the pants up and then you secure it, put the belt on, really go crazy with the try hard pants. I'm not sure, do I want to go with Brute, or do I want to play Ragriel Bastion that I'm having a lot of fun with, or do I want to also just take Buff Sagara and edit the start deck and then run the gauntlet with it? So there's a lot of things to consider. But Standard's gonna be really, really fun. I expect a lot of people. Yesterday, NA played 9 rounds. That's crazy. That was crazy. I was 9 rounds. There was over 300 players in the V Premium event. So I really hope that we have a lot going into the Standard 1-2 for all 3 regions, and we can all have a great time and have a nice top 16 cut as well. I think everyone's looking forward to that. But speaking of top cuts, it is time, not for the games yet, but for us to unveil all of the deck lists for the top 8 players and run through them bit by bit, starting off with Ryan M, who of course was the top seed, I believe, with Messiahs. So it's a fresh day, Ben, but I'm looking forward to your Messiah analysis from very early on.
Yeah, so we saw Ryan play in the final round of Swiss yesterday, and he narrowly beat out Gavrel. And one of the interesting about this list, compared to the previous Link Joker list we saw earlier in the day, is that he's not running Clear Frame. So his grade 3 count is just stuck at 10. 4 of the Heal Guardian, 4 Alter Ego, and 2 Harmonics. Of course, that harmonics is a big talking point because we've seen a lot of decks recently playing that harmonics. And I think the reason is because now with the Grade 3 Heal Guardians, that remarkable burst monk for the Vanguard restand has suddenly become a lot more consistent. And the space you give up for that extra harmonics isn't the end of the world. Sure, it's not an amazing first ride, and it's something that you're not always going to rewrite into because it doesn't give as much power as Alter Ego does. But if you're missing that second Volco, or you're missing like some other piece, then the ability to search the deck with harmonics is really useful, as well as this insane plussing effect for when you say have run out of Van Marnens or whatever. So I'm totally down with the evolution of Messiah as it is. Of course, the other way thing to mention about the deck is the new early game from having Lagrange, which lets you put down Volco on turn 1. He's also playing a heavy lineup of Manipulator and Van Marnen, which, again, some people are moving away from because now you have harmonics for the plus, now you have Burst Monk for the push and enabling, you have Lagrange for the Volco, but Ryan here is going for redundancy, and I think that's totally awesome, that's totally fine, and I'm kind of hoping he goes quite a distance.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that Messiahs in general have been kind of slept on, I want to say, a little bit, because they haven't gotten direct support throughout the last year, but the Lagrange is definitely a card that a lot of people have been waiting for. And while it's been out in Japan for a long time, it is also a card that I think pushes the deck to such great heights that it is really exciting to see how much work it's been putting in for all the Messiah players yesterday, and hopefully today too. JJ, any other comments?
I do think that it is a really happy sight to see that decks that used to be pretty okay during Silver Dust plays for a bit, then got tossed to the wayside, as making a reoccurrence again. I'm really excited to see it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So again, congrats to Ryan from the Philippines, which is very exciting. Great job for him to come out on top all the way across the globe. And of course, let's take a look at our second seed here and see what kind of deck list he is going to be bringing here as well. We have quite a lot of variety in this top 8, so you guys aren't ready. We're gonna let production take just a second. So we're actually going to take a look at Ryan's opponent. So we're going to be breaking this down in terms of matchups. It's going to be Ryan versus, as the first seed, versus the 8th seed. And so the 8th seed is Tyler. Oh. I have to give it a second. It's early morning. We got to inject caffeine into the system to make sure it works. But there we go. We have Tyler at WeRab Cardfight coming through with Gabriel. He is taking my hopes and dreams with him into this top 8 and continuing on the path that I could not walk on. This is literally identical to my own list. I can speak a bit more about it. But honestly, yesterday, for those of you that watched the NA stream, when I played the mirror match against Suo, Steven, he had a very interesting grade 2 that I am now in love with, and I will be playing myself due to being in love with. And it is a grade 2 that says, when it's a 9k, and when you have 5 damage, when it has boost and plus 20k power. So when you boost the Hamiel, it's a 29k booster, and with the new Yofiel, the blue grade 1 you see there, the first grade 1 in the list, you can push yourself to 5 damage manually, and then have the skill be active, which is really, really strong. This reaches much greater power heights, and just by playing 2 of it instead of a Bellyful Meds, maybe cutting a Sariel, you are able to push the deck's potential and the ceiling way higher. But this build, the Bellyful Meds, I personally also play it because it gives you the option to, let's say you have a Hamiel stuck in the damage and none in hand, right? Instead of starting off like Yafkiel, grabbing it, and then doing a rescue check and then getting a crit and burning that crit that you normally want to put on the Vanguard, you can use Bellyful Meds if you have it to put it in the soul, swap out the Hamiel, and then let that be your first rescue check, and then all of your rescue checks are very well optimized. Some people, I think, kind of tend to forget that this deck actually needs a lot of small optimizations, and there's a lot of all of the rescue effects are once per turn, but you are a deck that has a grade 2 that lets you tutor any normal unit. That means you can ungrade stuck yourself, you can tutor your Hamiel, you can find the missing rescue pieces, you can find the Bellyful if you need an extra soul, you can find yourself the Nakia if you need a grade 3 searcher, or the strongest booster in the deck if you don't play the grade 2. This is a deck that is insanely consistent, It is a deck that really, really benefits you and rewards you for knowing the right optimization, for knowing how to maximize your rescue checks, because you're limited to basically the maximum of 6 in a turn, and making the most out of the turns, whether you low roll or high roll, regardless, right? So I think that the Gabriel deck is really, really fun. It's really enjoyable, and after the addition of heal guards, there's even more to think about, especially going first, especially playing the mirror matches. And so I really can't wait to see how things are going to go for Tyler here.
Amen.
Any other comments?
What more is there to say, right? I think you pretty much covered everything. The only thing I have left to add is, like, as we mentioned, we're going in matchup order. So Tyler versus Ryan is actually what we saw at the end of Swiss yesterday. So it's the immediate run back. And just one thing I quickly want to bring up is, as we've discussed, Angel Feathers moved away from like the standard 16 crit high roll with the hand meal into this more optimized tech options like the Zophiel. What do you search with Sariel? Like, how do you sequence your rescue checks? Like, I want to add this first so I can do this, or I want to do that so I can do this, so on and so forth. And I think that's actually what gives Angel Feather the slight edge against Messiah, because at the end of the day, Messiah is just Volko a bunch of times and then go from there. But I'm interested to see how that goes, but we might even show that on stream. Let's find out. No spoilers here. But until then, I think let's just go ahead and move on to the next match, which I think is 4th versus 5th seed. So we have Brian. Yep, so he's the 4th seed. His Twitter is @HitachiCloud. He's from Puerto Rico. So again, another guy who's really running the hours playing this event here. And he's using Bermuda Triangle, but not the Bermuda Triangle we would have expected. He's playing Melody. Walk us through this, JJ.
Well, I'm not the connoisseur of the aquatic females, but I will have to say that it is one of the archetypes that it does have a whole lot of consistency of what Ben has been talking about in the earlier stages of yesterday, and it does have the potential of into the late game or into the later stages of the tournament. It does have the burst potential due to Sonata, due to Canon, due to all your other grade 3s and grade 2 melody units, allow you to push a whole lot of pressure into it, and I'm very excited to see how this one turns out. It's a bit different from Prism than we've traditionally seen, being a very consistent grindy deck of like 13 to 14 cards per time, but it's really nice to see that a deck like this can still put out some really good numbers. A lot of Western player base do not play decks like this that often, so I'm really happy to see somebody running the gauntlet with this one.
Yeah, as you say, Western players aren't really fond of this deck, and when you look at, say, Japan's meta, they massively prefer Melody over Prism. And so for those of you who weren't watching yesterday, I'll just quickly reiterate. The thing about Melody is that it doesn't have as high a floor or consistency rating as Prism, but the way it wins games is a lot more decisive. The thing about Prism is that it's a very slow, very grindy deck, but there's no haymaker. There's no, like, big, flashy, game-ending play. It's just gradual, a bunch of 20s, a bunch of 30s, just over a long period of time while plussing a lot of cards. Whereas Melody is just soul charge a bunch, make my columns get to 80k, force 2, axel 2, and then just send you to the moon. And like we said, when you're in Swiss, consistency is what you want. You want to be able to make sure that your deck's not going to fail you and that you can bring out your player skill and beat your opponents. But then in the top 8, where Brian is now, you maybe kind of don't need that consistency because you're only playing 3 rounds in top 8, but you're playing against the best of the best, and maybe your deck needs to have that special X factor to win games that you wouldn't normally win. And I think that's what Melody has. So yeah, it's a really interesting choice. Not really much to say about the deck list itself. It's pretty standard as you'd expect. He's playing good numbers of Sonata, good numbers of Caro, all the important pieces. The only thing I will mention, he's playing 2 copies of the grade 2 Serena, I think her name is. Not Sonata,
Yes.
but the blue head one, yeah. Which we don't normally see in a bunch of lists because it doesn't provide immediate benefit. And he's only playing 2 copies of the grade 2 Fina, which is arguably one of the slightly more important cards because it's an immediate shield value. But, I don't see that hindering him too much because at the end of the day, his main game plan is Canon, Soul Charge a bunch, and then make numbers. But of course, he's not the only person in this match of top 8. We have him against the 5th seed, who we'll take a look at now.
Let's go. will be the one fighting against it, and it's gonna be the Bermuda matchup here. This is, this almost feels like Japan versus the West. As we talked about in Japan, I actually had the honor of talking to one of the commentators from the Japanese side, Mr. Harepin, that I'm sure some of you may know of, and he popped into my chat once, and I was asking him, like, what do you think of the fact that, in the West, like, we really think Prism is stronger in V. Like, we think Prism is one of the best decks. We think it is the Bermuda deck, whereas in Japan, they really rate Melody much higher. And he said that basically, like, if you want to play a deck like the Prism, you could play something like Luard, which functions in a very similar way, because I guess when you think about it, right, it pluses in a similar way, but just you have to, like, it's very specific cards that give you the plus, whereas in Prisms, it's like every card that kind of like has that plus written into it, but you always rely on that engine, whereas cards like Luard are much more like, able to toolbox for things, and it's much more flexible. But the game plan is quite similar in terms of, progressively rewriting and having those consistent multi-attacks. But they think that because of the high attack power and like the ability to really just have that upper ceiling with Melody, they rate that deck very, very high as like its own thing. They don't even really compare, like they don't put it in the same pool as Prisms because the decks behave so differently. And so here we have the Prism list from Chan ML, and this is a really interesting Prism list. I want to talk about it for a second because we oftentimes see Prism decks kind of divert into different directions, right? The one thing you'll always find is they're going to be playing 4 of each of the Prism card and then 4 Ellies, right? Usually you'll see quite a few Sednas in there, and then it'll start teching out, and usually you will also see like 4 of the Lieselot, because that card is really, really amazing. Like, it's one of the best cards ever printed in this clan. And then after that, we usually see like maybe 4 Aqua. So here we see like quite a few different card counts, and he plays one of the Lupina, which a lot of people would say is a deck of its own, especially after Clyde Collection. He plays one of the Nectaria, which we some players not play at all. So people play at 2 because it lets you set up your bind zone a bit more consistently. And my favorite, most recent kind of innovation in Prisms is the Kutire, because Kutire allows you to more or less like slap a Highlander aspect into the deck and help you tutor out for specific cards. And I was speaking to some of the top players, because we were talking about the Gavriel matchup against Prisms. And they were saying, yeah, especially against the Highlander version with the Kutire, it's actually really rough because they can adapt so easily to specific matchups. It's much easier for them to tutor out. And you can see that this deck almost looks kind of Highlander-y with all the one-ofs that he plays, right? And so I think that Chan is definitely like a little, like, he's experimenting a lot with this Prism list, and I like it. I like it so much. The one of Anj as well for the late game can be insanely good after you've rewrote Vera a few times, because that will actually, get you to just tutor for whatever you want. And while it's not as strong as it is in its own deck, it's still a really great card to go into and an amazing ride target while we're at it.
Yeah, it's like I was saying earlier about consistency versus, top end potential, and pure Prism has a very, very high level of consistency, but a very questionable level of top end. It's still good. It's still one of the best decks, but it's not as convincingly game ending as, say, Gavrel or Luard or Melody. But by adding in the Highlander pieces, you get that early burst. You get that, even more consistency, believe it or not, despite what playing Highlander ratios might say. And just by giving up like 1 or 2 copies of Sedna and like 2 or 3 copies of Lieselot, you get to play these other cards, like, these one-offs, like the Spiana, the Aurora, the Lupina, the Anj, that would, again, win you these games, like 1 in 10 games that you wouldn't deserve to win otherwise.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. JJ, what do you think of all these like one-ups and the Highlander choice and all these like splashes in the burst in the list as well?
It does allow him to cycle through a whole lot more of his deck, and especially one of my favorite cards, I think, out of all of Bermuda currently at the moment, is Steza, because a whole lot of people might not know this. She can target grade 3 units, so you can target your Heal Guardians and send it back to your deck.
Yeah, that's true, huh? That's a great addition to the list as well. And we've seen quite a few decks that want to like recycle those Heal Guards as best as possible. So that is very exciting. I hope that, this is going to be a matchup to look forward to as well. While it may, some people might go like, it's Bermuda versus Bermuda, but look at how much is going on in these deck lists, right? They're so teched out. There's so many different ideas, so many different choices, and like, these aren't just random cards that people select, right? When you lock in a deck list into a tournament, chances are you've spent hours and hours and weeks and months potentially perfecting the list and making sure that it is exactly card for card what you want it to be, and every card choice is something that answers a specific situation. But of course, we still have more matchups to show you. Let's take a look at the next of the decks. So here we have the other Prism player in the top 8, and once again, this is very different. Mervin's list. So Mervin, a personal friend of mine, he's also very active in my community. He is playing a Prism list with, again, we see the Kutiren here as a 2 of. We see both of the Pearl Sisters, which I really, really like to see. He's playing the Anj and the Tiroa, which is what I want to see here. Because with this kind of build, you can go and prioritize the Prism engine throughout the entirety of the early game, right? Get your force markers by rewriting there, etc., etc. It's a bunch. And then you can ride into the Anj. You can actually search out the Tiroa after you've stacked up a bunch of force markers on one circle, and then the Tiroa will swing twice in one turn, making use of whatever triggers you put onto it too. The Pearl Sisters also work really well with Anj. You have one of them in hand, okay, you ride into Anj, you can call one of them, search out the other one with Anj's skill, and now we have 2 super threatening attacks. And so, I really like what Mervin is doing here with his list. This is actually a more recent innovation. I think I've seen him innovate this Prism list many, many times. I think he started off with more of the typical ones we often see, much more lean, and it started to tech and try out different cards and ideas more and more as time went on.
And as we can see here, there's a whole bunch of copies of the staples that you're probably going to just be only running are just all of the vert cards plus LA, and everything else around it is just sort of up to your own taste. It's just sort of what your own personal playstyle is what. And this is one of the very best things that I like about deck building, deck design in general. It has a whole lot of skill expression and a whole lot of originality you can add to it your own, right?
Yes, absolutely. Ben, any closing thoughts?
No, I think when it comes to things like one-offs, the difference between Tiroa and Lupina in things like semi-Highlander builds, it's basically impossible to tell at a glance, or at a first comment, is this gonna work out? Is this not gonna work out? Is Mervin playing Pearl Sisters gonna make a difference over not playing Pearl Sisters? Literally anything you can or would say, there's pretty much no point saying it, because it just comes down to, is it gonna work? And in the case of both these players, they're both in top 8, so it's definitely worked so far. And I guess it's just a case of, depending on the result of that Highlander of Melody versus Prism we saw earlier, I'm almost excited to see Prisms face off against each other if it wasn't for the fact that they're on opposite sides of the bracket, because what's the best way of seeing which one works other than just to duke it out?
Yep. It's a great sight, that's for sure. But let's take a look at who he is going to be going up against in this top 8 match as well. And it's going to be a pretty exciting one because it is Pierre Mahuto. So this is a player that a lot of the Europeans will be very familiar with, I think, over the years, especially if you've played competitive Vanguard, since the G era. This is one of the French legends that has been very consistent in his tournaments for many, many years. And he decided to take Luard here. And there's a few things I want to break down about this list. The 3 drag drivers, Ben, I know that this can definitely backfire at times. We can talk about that later.
Yep.
Then the double Karen, 4 Owl. We've seen people reduce the owls at times because they know they can recycle it, tutor it, but at times you just want to draw them, right? You just want to draw them, especially going second, make use of that Soul Blast cost that you can to get the extra card draw when you need to against certain matchups, when you need to farm a little bit more. The Lualis there as well is being played while the bats are also there. And so I feel like this is a very interesting deck where you have so many different ideas, right? Because we often see people that prioritize Lualis plus Branwen as the kind of focus to go with big power columns. We swing 4 attacks, but they're all omega huge. And then there's some decks that prioritize the bats, and then they usually sacrifice some of the other card choices. But here we're seeing Pierre actually try to make both of them fit into the same deck. So what else could you say about this, Ben?
Well, give me a few minutes because there's a lot to do. Let's talk about the 3 drag driver first. I'm of the opinion that 3 drag driver is correct because you can recycle them, you can soul blast them. Like, it's very rare that you actually need the fourth drag driver. And I think Pierre, as the caliber of player that he is, has probably seen this as well and is realizing, like, yeah, I can that one space I can use for other cards more efficiently elsewhere. So I'm a big fan of that. The 4 Owl I think is a really nice option, because one thing that we kept touching upon yesterday is the fact that a lot of the decks in the meta nowadays are playing grade 2s with counterblast on ride skills. Especially here, we have Leofel, we have Rosa, we have Yafgiel in Gavril. So all these decks that want a counterblast on turn 1 are really aggressive for that counterblast now. And at the same time, people realize that when people are playing decks like that, you can just pass turn 1 to deny them that incredible plus. And in the case of Leofel, what a lot of people do is going second, they'll ride the Leofel, search for the Owl, and get a free draw while also soul blasting 1 to set up their ritual. And that's you don't want your opponent to get that free card. So some people will even pass going first into Luard. And so what 4 Owl does is that when your opponent does that, you can just hard draw the Owl and play it from hand and get your plus anyway. So I'm a huge fan of that. Again, the Suels is a really solid card. It's works with, like you said, works with Morfessa, works on its own. It can even, you can even have in the back row boosting the bat that comes out with your 5 attack combo if you need those numbers. He's playing the 4 Branwen, which that's one thing that I've cut recently. I've just found that the 13k body is just not as great as compared to, say, the 3rd Suels or like the 2nd Decrom. In any situation that you would want Branwen boosting, you'd rather have the Suels. And in any situation where you'd want the plus, you'd rather just have the Abyssal Owl. So, but it's working out for him so far, so it's good to see that. But 4 is a really heavy lineup, and that I'm thinking that could be eating into spots that he can play in other positions. The big thing I want to call out here is that he's playing 2 Bat and the Abyss Router. Now, usually when we see people play Apocalypse Bat for the 5 attack combo, they're playing 3 because, what if you damage one? What if one's stuck in the deck? Because you need to have 2 Bats in circulation for the combo. You need 1 in Soul, which you either ride or put in with Nightmare Painter, which he's playing at a 2 of, and you need to have one of the drop zone to Morfessa call out. So the fact that he's only playing 2 Bat means that he has to see both of them throughout the game, and what that means is he might end up having to search for it a little bit more aggressively with, say, the Drag Drivers on place or the Leofel, and that might mean he might not be able to search for, say, Swells as a booster or Karen as a countercharger. So it's a little bit hard to set up, but obviously it's a slightly bigger attack compared to, say, Abyss Router, which calls out a trigger. So Abyss Router is also the other way of getting 5 attacks, but A, it is slightly smaller because you're calling a 5k trigger that doesn't hit as much, and B, it just doesn't, it's not as generically useful in the rest of the time. Worst case scenario, if you're really far behind, Apocalypse Bat on right can call out your starter as a 6k booster or a beat stick. So, between myself and the other Luard players that I know, we've moved away from Abyss Router. So I'm really curious to know why he's chosen to say, instead of playing 3 Bat for the consistency, I'm going to take in the 1 Router just for whatever reason. Because taking in that 1 Router has introduced the need to play that 1 Router, if that makes sense. You wouldn't need the Router for that emergency case if you just had 3 Bat. So this is also, we'll see how this works out for him. But, of course, this is still not the end of the top 8. We still have 2 more players to go. And I think we can confirm that these last 2 players is going to be our stream match. So these are who you're going to be seeing in just a few moments' time. First up, we have our world champion, Nuno Raymundo, playing his ever so beloved Vanquishers.
Yes, this is a deck that we got to see him play round 1, and we do know that it is one of his favorites, and he was doing quite well in the other regions too, but I think, when you're running the gauntlet, the exhaustion can catch up, and at some point you just gotta go to bed and prioritize playing in top 8 to make sure you can make it all the way to get that prize. So for those of you that don't know, Nuno Raymundo is the current world champion of the V Premium format. He is definitely not someone to be slept on. I think everyone knows his name here as well. And I like the Vanquisher list a lot. I think it is very clean. He runs, multiple targets that benefit from being bound, the Chatra as well as the Chain Bolt. And then on top of that, he also plays 3 of the Book of Strong Arming, which I think is a really great addition. You don't really use your soul much for outside of full tech shred, and you're gaining so much soul in this deck because you're putting in your Jaggy shots, you're rewriting full Bronto and things like that. So you're gaining so much soul and you don't really have much to burn it on, so that once per game use of the Book of Strong Arming just gets you that extra card draw, extra power, and extra little bit of push that you need to really execute well with this deck. And I think, man, I really want to see this deck perform. It is the only Vanquisher that has topped from all 3 regions, and for it to be the world champion, I don't know, man. I'm getting my hopes up over here, but I think he can actually succeed quite well. JJ, what do you have? Like, what kind of comments do you have about Nuno's deck list here?
I think Book of Shroud Arming is probably like one of the most underutilized cards for a while since Blade Master. And I'm really happy to see it at least make an appearance again in top 8. It's really nice to see it again.
Yep, absolutely. Ben, anything else to add?
I think it's just a case of this is one of the rare cases we get to see player skill really shine through, because if you ask any of the top players, like any of WCC, any of Strictly Broken, etc., any of the guys that topped AO, they probably wouldn't have expected to see Vanquisher in these top tables. But the fact that Nuno, the world champion, has been able to get this far, I think just speaks volumes into how good of a player he is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that a lot of people have high expectations to see how he will perform as well in today's top 8, and whether he can defend his title on, a world's level tournament, right? Look at the bracket. You see the countries that these players are from. They're all over the place. Like, we have like 2 Europeans or 3 Europeans in the entire bracket. So it really is, one of the things I love about BRO is that it's kind of like a mini worlds, right? You play against people from all over the place, from the other side of the globe, and I want to see how he will fight on this worldwide international stage today as well. But of course, we have one more deck to take a look at, and that's going to be his opponent. Let's see who Nuno will be playing against in the top 8, and this will be Tufshin Tulga with his Messiah deck. And once again, these are, you might be thinking, oh, it's another Messiah, this looks very similar. There are some changes, right? Reduce the Lady Fencer, 4 of the Burst Monk, we saw how important that was in the round that we showed on stream from Tufshin Tulga, and he's playing 3 of the Clear Frame Order, which gives you that extra little bit of unlock and draw, which of course is good. You have 2 ways to unlock, so if you have to use Alter Ego to bring back 2 front row units like a double Volko, or you have to bring back Volko and a Lady Fencer, then you basically allow yourself to unlock both of them through a Lagrange as well as the Clear Frame. But again, Mr. Messiah expert, dude, I got to talk about DP last week, so you get to talk about Messiahs this week.
Yeah, like I mentioned with Ryan's deck list, he was playing the Van Marnen for the extra plus, whereas Tufshin Tulga's just gone full in on the combo. Let's go for it. Like, let's move towards this win. And like you mentioned, having Clear Frame to have against retire decks, so you can ride the Alter Ego and immediately have the full board is huge. It's just a case of where do you want your overlap in redundancy to occur, because in a way, having Harmonics overlaps with Van Marnen because they're both already good pluses, whereas now having Clear Frame overlaps with the Lagrange because now you have the unlock effect. And it's more grade 3s that you can more reliably hit your Burst Monk, and you're not giving up anything for it. That's the important thing to remember. Like, now that you have Lagrange, you can pretty comfortably bank on a turn 1 Volko. So cutting Lady Fencer down to 2 is pretty much not the end of the world. It's like, I would be willing to do that as well, because you want to be riding the Gastro because it's Vanguard effect, and you want to be riding the Burst Monk so that you can Soul Blast it with Alter Ego to bring it back again. That's a really huge thing that we saw Tufshin Tulga do in his round. And so, just by changing sort of how you approach the deck, rather than just going like, okay, I'm going to play like my game this way versus I'm going to play my game that way, can dramatically affect how you build your deck and how the cards in your deck change what options you have available to you. And again, this is something that I said at the very beginning of yesterday. The difference between V and Premium is that with Premium, how to do what you want to do is very easy. It's just figuring out what it is you want to do. Whereas in V, knowing what you want to do is pretty straightforward because decks are very linear, decks are very easy, and the cards, do what they say. But it's deciding how do you get there? Like, which cards do you play to get yourself closer to that condition you want to put yourself into? And we see that with the Clear Frame, with the Manipulator of the Void. Again, a card that is still putting in a lot of work. It's just, do I need this? But if I need this Burst Monk, how do I get this Burst Monk? If I need this Volko, how do I get this Volko? And then these tech options of the 2 Harmonics or whatever is just the sort of auxiliary around to that.
That's couldn't have said it better myself. Couldn't have said it better myself. I think that it's honestly awesome to see the two Messiah players make it to top 8 is a deck that, again, I keep saying this, people didn't really expect to do as hot, but we're seeing the Messiah mains, prove us wrong, and I hope they can take it to top 4 and potentially finals too. Of course, I think we're going to be getting close to starting on our top 8 match soon as well. So I think since both players, are ready to go, let's just get into it. Once they are ready to get into it and start playing. And this is going to be brought to you by all 3 of us. Nobody's stepping off this time. We got JJ, myself, and Ben here to give you the play-by-play and all the action for the event. Nuno versus Tufshin Tulga. This is one of the EU matchups in the entire event. Portugal versus Germany. This is something, if you went to Dusseldorf, or you went to one of the French events, or Germany, or the UK events, you could see this in the top 8 there as well domestically. But it's going to be great to see, how have these players improved over these last 2 years since the last big Bushiroad event. I'm really excited to see how things will play out. And going first will be Nuno.
Yeah, I just want to talk about the matchup real quick because Tufshin Tulga's playing the Clear Frame, which would normally be very, very good against these board control decks. But the big problem is he's playing against Vanquisher, which will bind rear guards. And so those Volcos, if they get retired, you can alter ego them back, Clear Frame them up, or even Grand Guard them up, no big problem. But if they get bound, they're gone. They're donezo. There's no coming back from that.
Yeah,
Yep.
so he'll need to tempo his resources really, really accurately here. He'll probably need to wait until the Vanquisher play, until Nuno probably gets his first Vanquisher turn, or maybe wait until he's ready to go in. So if he gets a crit here, or able to push him to 3 damage, maybe he can probably commit a Volco or 2, so then he can get some pressure going.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that Nuno went first is a really huge tempo swing, because even if he had hit the turn 1 Lagrange into Volco here, it means that Nuno could have just rode Grade 3 first, Vanquisher, Counterblast 1, goodbye Volco, and then the game just sort of tumbles downhill from there. And I think what Tufshin Tulga is probably going to want to do is, his first Grade 3 ride is probably going to be very, very unassuming. Maybe Fencer at the most, but definitely no Burst Monk, definitely no Volco. And the only downside there is that even if he plays that sort of casual, less aggressive Grade 3, turn 3 turn, it means that Nuno can then re-ride next turn into Vanquisher, have the Grade 3 Insulter bind the card from hand, which is going to be really painful for Tufshin Tulga. That way, even if Tufshin Tulga goes for the Harmonics re-ride, which I think would be clever here, because then you can just search the Volco from the deck, it might not go in his favor. But we see the crit there. The early crit is going to really, really help him out. It's going to ease some of that pressure he would have felt otherwise. And we saw him discard an alter ego off of the Lady Battler, which means that it's going to be safe because he can just bring it back with the alter ego. But he also Volcos from hand with the Manipulator. That's a really aggressive line. I don't know if he's going to get punished for that or not.
Yeah, that's going to be a little bit concerning because Vanquisher doesn't really have access to the back row in Nuno's list, I want to say. Some people do play the Grade 2 promo that lets you, bind and then pull from the back, but Nuno did forego that card. So for the time being, it is safe, but that is a card that is going to be a prime target to be bound. And I think for Tufshin Tulga, as you mentioned earlier, the Harmonics will actually be super huge in this matchup to try to make sure he doesn't run out of pieces. 2 Volcos already have been publicly revealed. And so now it's going to be just a matter of, can he continue to find his pieces? Nuno here using the Grade 3 Searcher to find himself a full Bronto, discarding the crit for it too.
Yeah, that's going to be a bit of a I wouldn't say a whoopsie here, but it's going to be in a situation for him. I guess he just discarded the crit trigger because he might have already have a Heal Guardian in hand, so he's probably just prepping for that in his hand already. So he'll probably end up Heal Guarding the Volco. And I think Tufshin Tulga's game plan is just to try put him to 3. I think that's his goal right now. Before he combos off, setting Nuno to 3 is probably his mini quest. Survive and put him to 3 so that he can try finish off that way.
Yeah, we saw that Nuno push forward the Mighty Bolt just to get an attack in. Tufshin Tulga even thought about quick shielding it, but I think he realized that he might want the counterblast for his Gastro turn. But I like the play from Nuno because he knows that next turn, Tufshin Tulga is going to push that Volco forward. He's going to be taking 30k to the face. He's probably going to end up being on 4 damage, which he is not you don't really want to be behind as a Vanquisher player. So he's pushing the mighty forward and be like, okay, if you're going to rush me, I'm going to rush you right back. No concerns here. Tushin Tolga committing 2 Burst Monks. Again, that's one in the soul, so you can Soul Blast it with Alter Ego, no big deal. But then the other one is just being played from hand. And again, if Nuno decides to bind that card, that's a card that you're not going to have access to ever again.
He's
But
not pushing the
it.
Volko
I
forward.
really like that play. That's really smart from Tushin Tolga. He doesn't want his Volker to get bound. But the crit coming in again for Nuno is he's going to be on that 4 damage. Like I said, you don't want to be in that situation. And now he's definitely on the back foot.
Yep. Manipulate the Void will be able to use its effect. We're going to put a Laguniard down here and draw a card, allowing him to cycle. They're still coming in with 20, so that's a 15k shield from Nuno. He's going to take it? Going to 5. Oh, 2 Book of Strong Arming have been sent to the damage zone. I hope he has one in hand because this will be a perfect turn for it. Being able to push through and make a lot out of this turn. There's 1 front row rear guard that he can bind as well, which will allow him... there's an interesting interaction with Vanquisher where you can actually bind your own front row rear for Vanquisher's effect, and then use something like the Jaggy Shot to then bind your opponent's front row, and then you basically get to, after that, bind, something from your hand, which reaches you to the count of 3 without actually having the grade 3 in the soul, which is like a nice little workaround that you can make use of. So I personally like that line of play a lot, but it depends if he has something that is burnable in his hand to self-bind, or if he values that plus 10k hard enough.
Yeah, if I'm in Nuno's shoes right now, I probably wouldn't go for that line of play, just because you're on 5 damage.
Triple Jaggy Shot. No wonder he was taking all those attacks and he's at 5 now. He was holding like 4 grade 3s in hand.
Yeah, I think you're just going to bind the Burst Monk here. Just get whatever you can. You don't need the plus 10k, because if you have triple Jaggy Shot and you've taken all those attacks, I think it's pretty likely that he's also going to have the full Bronto. Well, we saw him add the full Bronto, but he might have like another Chitura on top, or like the Chain Bolt. So yeah, this is what I'm saying about how Nuno's tempo going first. He's just going to lay into Tushin Tolga, because sure, he's taking a Force 2 Volker next turn, but it's not going to... As long as he can survive it, he has all the tools he needs to come back.
Mm-hmm.
That is right.
So there's a 2 to pass here. Nothing.
Chatura is nice. Chatura is nice. All right, but I think the focus right now is definitely the Jaggy Shots. Triple Jaggy. It's going to be a huge soul. Again, I wanted to see a Book of Strong Army here, but it looks like all of them went to the damage zone so far. It would have really helped Nuno to stabilize. Is he attacking unboosted? I think so. This will be very good because that allows him to make use... Oh, he's going to go for full Bronto here as well. That's very smart.
Yeah,
because this way, he
the
not
Jaggy Shot will
waste...
go into Soul when open the circle, which he can then use the other Jaggy Shot to put the Chitura on.
Exactly. I love that line of play a lot. He's going to swing in. Well, he's going to re-ride into the full Bronto here, pushing Tushin Tolga to 2 damage. He finds a critical trigger defensive, pushing himself to 20, but these attacks are still hitting. Now full Bronto gives plus 10k to the front row, and these attacks are much more threatening all of a sudden. Making use of this Jaggy Shot.
The Chitura.
Binding it, now it is at 18 and plus the 8k boost, so 26 plus 5, 31. So we're still hitting for at least 15k shield. Tushin Tolga will be guarding that one. Oh, don't forget to put that into the soul to get the card draw. I think he needs the card draw more than anything right now. All right,
I just want to
31.
call attention to their hand sizes here, because Nuno hasn't been guarding anything and he's gotten 5 damage, but then he's had these Jaggy Shots, all these draws to like make up for it. But at the same time, Tushin Tolga's hand isn't actually as healthy as you'd think, because sure, he's been drive checking crits, and he's hit with Manipulator twice, but those hits are pluses to the board, not exactly pluses to hand. And he even called down a Lagrangiard, which is a 10k shield. So, all of these numbers, like they're 22, 27s. These aren't exactly easy for Tushin Tolga to guard either. So I think there's a good chance we're going to see some damage equalize here.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. It's right here. Because, of course, this full Bronto is going to currently have like 1 drive check, but a lot of these rear guards are going to be hitting for close to, 30.
Second Chitura, wow.
You love to see it. This is really nice. So we're going to see a 3rd damage check here for Tushin Tolga. Looks like we will when it's the order.
So the only slight concerning thing is that because he's calling these Chituras after the full Bronto rewrite, they're not as big as they could be. This one's only 23, which is just 5k shield from Tushin Tolga. But at the same time, he had what, 6 attacks this turn, 7 including the Vanguard swing. To go from being on 5 damage is not a great position, but like we said, because he has the triple Jaggy, which is actually a plus because it draws 2 cards, not just 1. It's exactly what he needs to get there, and I think he's probably fine to stabilize because the worst case scenario is that Tushin Toga rides Alter Ego, brings back the Burst Monk behind, at a back row column, and then does what we saw yesterday, where he just restands the whole board twice. That could maybe be problematic for Nuno because we haven't seen any perfect guards on either side of the players. Neither in damage, neither in the drive checks.
Oh, heal trigger. Very
is
important
huge.
one. This is actually huge. I think he's been trying to find one this entire turn, and now they're equalized 4-4. And look at Tushin Tulga's hand; it's like 3 cards.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, he doesn't need the hand because he has everything he already needs. The Volko's on the board. There's a Burst Monk in his soul that he can just bring back with Alter Ego. So even if it was just the one Alter Ego in hand, I wouldn't be worried if I was Tushin Toga. He G assists. Oh dear.
Oh, suddenly
no.
this is looking a lot more dangerous. No wonder he was fishing for it so hard with the manipulators. And thing is, he didn't even see them in the damage checks either. Like those, like grade 3 messiahs are all just gone. He's gonna find the alter ego. Thank goodness.
It would have been really bad if he found the Harmonics here because Harmonics needs a grade 3 in Soul to do its effect. So if he had hit the Harmonics here, he wouldn't have been able to combo off, which is really bad. We even see he has the 3rd Volko in hand, so he's saying to Nuno, like, go ahead and bind this Volko that I'm going to push up. I'm not worried at all because I can just make another one.
Exactly.
So what are we binding here?
I'm definitely getting rid of Clear Frame and probably one of the 2 triggers. I think the draw, because the crit can 1-card guard like early swings, and the draw PG is just it's a neg 1 realistically against like a 7 or 8 attack Vanquisher next turn. That's what I'm thinking.
What if I told you Volk Roar and draw PG?
I don't mind that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because if you're G assisting, you're losing 2 cards in hand. You're probably not gonna have a next turn anyway, and he already has 1 Volko in the drop zone that he can bring back if he wants. So yeah, he's got 2 Volkos ready to go. So yeah, he is actually gonna get rid of a Volko, which I think is totally fine.
Okay. So the clear frame idea was more he could have gotten an extra attack off of it, so it could have given him access to force some more cards out of Nuno's hand because his hand is pretty farmed at the moment. I think he has like 6 or 7 cards going into the turn, and he does have the Land Jar.
Exactly, so he doesn't need the clear frame because he's going to bring back the Burst Monk in one column, which obviously does need to be unlocked, and then an attacker in the other column. So I think he's fine on that front.
Okay.
But he doesn't have. Oh, he has the other Volko, right? So he's committing double Volko now, which is not the end of the world, but it means that if he does survive Nuno's next turn, he's going to have nothing to play with. I also want to mention that the heal wasn't as big for Nuno as we think because he's still on 4 damage, and that Volko has a Force 2 marker on it, and it's going to be the scariest swing out there.
Absolutely, and it's coming in twice. It's going to be really, really powerful. But of course, he will swing with this one without the Force 2 on it first, which will allow Nuno to potentially... I think this is the only attack you can take this turn.
Absolutely.
So I think this is the one that you have to be taking, and he knows that he's going to take it. What does he see in the damage? That's a Chatura.
There's no trigger. The important thing is, though, at least now, taking this damage means that Tushin Toga cannot heal down.
That is true. Very important as you've been building up this momentum throughout this entire game so far.
Yep, so now we see that all these attacks need to be guarded. Nuno hard guards that. So we don't know. We probably tells us he might not have a PG.
2 15Ks. Or he's saving it for the restand turns because we know that, those Volkos are going to get even more swole going into this next battle. I'll attack with the Alter Ego Messiah. This will be able to unlock everything. And of course, it's also triggered the Burst Monk's ability in order to try and test fate. And we know that he has plenty of grade 3s in deck as he just G-assisted there. Remarkable Burst Monk. What will he find? Reveal the top card of your deck and show us the fate is not a grade 3. It's going to go to hand. The Alter Ego is not going to restand. We're not going to see a repeat of his Swiss rounds here.
Yeah, that's really good for Nuno. It means that he's under way less threat this turn.
Still has to deal with all these attacks, and his hand is quite healthy. He drew so many cards off the triple Jaggy last turn, and also being able to use the full Bronto, but Did he find the pieces he wants? Does he have the cards he needs to survive and then still have some kind of gas for next turn too? That looks like a double heal guard to me.
That is indeed. Yeah, so again, he's probably saving the draw PG for the last swing on the Volco, which is going to be, I think, 50k with the Force 2, plus the 10k from the Volco's.
The
other
greater is
Volco.
close.
There it is.
The greater is close. And the critical trigger. Now
That's
both
huge.
swing. That's, yeah, everything is lethal. It already was, but even more so now.
Mm-hmm.
So, crit there, and power. I think at this point it doesn't matter because neither Volco is being boosted and they're both lethal, so whichever one you give the power to is the one that swings last, so that the other Volco swings first and then gives the bigger Volco plus 10k. So it's going to be 30, 40, 50, 60k. It's coming in on the lot, so it's going to be yeah, so for the numbers it's going to be 40 and then 60. That's those are indeed some numbers.
That's a huge jump as well. Absolutely incredible.
So I currently think he probably has like 5 cards left over now to guard with. This looks like maybe a perfect guard and maybe 40k shield.
Yeah. So yeah, you definitely perfect guard the 60k column. 40k is not undoable. You know, again, he's been dropping pairs of triggers so far. He can do it again with like say trigger intercept grade 1 if he has it, but you know, 5 cards is not that much. So there's 15, 10, and then an intercept for 5, or nope, just manual. No, okay, double intercept, triple. Wait.
Wow.
Okay, yeah, he needs it's 5k short because it's a 15k heal lands a 15k shield. So that put it, yeah. So 15 plus 15 puts him on 42. Yeah, which he needs.
Yep. That does indeed get him there. Or I think he overguarded by 5, no? This would be what? 15, 20 plus 10. So he has 32, 42, 47 question mark?
Yeah, I think, I think he did overguard by 5.
I'm not too sure. Might be on our side too.
Right, no, he Tushin took us one with a triggered Volca first, so it was 50. So it's gonna be 2 50s, that's what it is.
Okay.
That's very smart. Draw PG coming down for Nuno though. He'll be able to survive and has to discard the full Bronto. What did he keep as the last card in hand? Nuno barely hanging on here. The world champion. Quite literally the best player of this format in the world. The Sekai champion. The man himself rewrites the Vanquisher for the 3rd Axel marker. Very few cards in hand.
Full Bronto, I don't know if he finds it, but so the great thing is that even without rewriting, he had the full Bronto in Soul. So the Counterblast 1 for Vanquisher would have bound a card from Tushin Tilga's hand anyway. And at this point, Nuno's on such a low hand, what he can even do is just slam cards down first, and then Counterblast 1 so he has no cards in hand, nothing to bind, and just, you know, I'm not bothered.
That's true. Don't forget, now all these great 3s in Soul mean that Nuno will be able to start binding from hand as well, but it depends what is in his own hand that he's happy to bind away. You know, if it's not a Chain Bolt or a Chatra, suddenly it's like, oh, that could have been an attacker.
And Tushin Toga's hand is looking kind of healthy right now as well, since he flipped a couple of cards over. Especially, we do know that there is a grade 3 in his hand, so that's probably going to be one of the cards he's just going to bind off of the Vanquisher. For sure.
Yeah, so the cards we know he's kept, the 2 cards we know he kept are Crit and Draw PG. We saw him Drive Check Crit and a grade 3, and then he added a grade 1 with the Burst Monk's effect. So known shield value at the moment is currently 45k shield, plus the grade 3, out of I think a 6 card hand. So it's not terrible, but it depends on whether or not how many of those cards Nuno can rip out. Like, depending on whether he hit the full Bronto, I think there's even an argument for just main phase full Bronto here.
Could be.
Yeah, just slam your front row, fill your Axel circles, and then just give him plus 10k and go, you know?
He just has to think, what will he sacrifice to bind from hand? I think he doesn't have anything that works off of being bound, but he wants to rip that card out of Tushin Tulga's hand. But at the same time, every attack means you're getting closer. How much do you what do you value more? Getting a card out of their hand, or the bonus attack that you could have as well? Jaggy shot, the 4th one was in hand this whole time.
Whew. I think he probably might have ended up drawing it off of one of the previous Jaggy shots, and he probably thought he needed it as a combo piece. Or he probably drew into it. It's a possibility. Everything.
He's gonna find his last card from hand. We'll see what it is. So probably eat the Force 2 Volco, I'm guessing.
The other one, because
+1.
they're both going to be gone here. Draw PG
Draw
will be
PG.
bound away. It doesn't matter. It doesn't hit for good numbers. We don't need it.
So it's not the end of the world here. As long as he drive checks his full Bronto, he can still get in that extra attack.
Oh, I think we're all hoping for it right now. Plus 10k to the front row is active.
So I have a question for both of you. Would it be greedy to keep the harmonics?
Absolutely.
Ben says that's not something we will discuss. end of discussion. Okay, he's gonna let that be bound away.
You know, there's a comment about how, like, you know, you want to rewrite the harmonics next turn. If you survive this turn, you want to rewrite so that you can search out your 4th Volco from the deck.
Yeah.
But again, like, your 3 Volcos out already. 1 got G assisted. 2, you know, 1, 2, both are being bound this turn. I think you know, it's going to be really hard for you to come back. And even if you had the 4th harmonics, like, the harmonics into the 4th Volco, given that Nuno's has no hand right now and is really, like, you know, running on fumes, I don't think you even need it. You just push forward your, you know, maybe alter ego, revive a booster, you know, maybe a fencer if you have it, and then just go from there. And that, you know, that's going to be more, like, unless Nuno double heals, that's going to be more than enough to seal off this game.
Well, we do happen to have information. I think he does not have any more heals because he healed. I think 1 went to his damage that he drew into, and he draw check 1.
Yeah, well,
Gonna
he
be
got
rough.
with 2, so I think we have 1 heal left in the deck, but 2 very non-interesting triggers there from Nuno. Tushintilka did God, I think, so it's not awful. Power to the Jaggy.
Okay, so remind me of the drive checks there for a second. That was the draw, and what was the other one?
Book.
I think it was a
Oh, the
book.
book! He wanted to see that earlier. That is so unfortunate.
The problem is that neither of those drive checks were cards that work off of bind, so even if he drew the full Bronto, nope, he's just binding the book. So I was going to say, like, the draw would have been nice because he could have drive checked the full Bronto and then drawn into something that could have been called off of a bind effect, but he just didn't have it, it seems.
2 cards in hand left for Tushintilga, and he's on 5 damage. The last Volko went to the damage zone as well here. He's guarding this attack with the crit. He's trying to barely survive. Last Mighty Bolt, last card in hand is a critical trigger that would be enough to survive with no cards in hand. Oh, but Tushintilga has Alter Ego active. He has the Lagranjard that can unlock whatever he calls. He can still get at least 4 attacks this turn with Nuno at 5 damage. World champions back pressed against the wall right now. Oh boys, this is
One thing I
gonna be
think
intense.
Tushintilga could do, I don't know if it's the best play, but whatever it is he just drew, as long as it wasn't a clear frame, he can call over his Burst Monk and then bring back both Burst Monk, like, so call over the first Burst Monk, the one that's on the back row rear guard, Soul Blast the second one, call them both out with Alter Ego, and just swing, and then just pray that both of the Burst Monks go off.
Ooh, that's...
Like, either of the 2 go off.
And
Because
even if they don't go off, it's still like you're drawing 2 cards extra, which is also fine.
Yeah, and you know, we know Nuno only has 2 cards in hand, so as long as the Vanguard can restand, that's... I would be surprised if that wasn't game.
He has 4, no? Because he drove check
Drew off the Jaggy
2,
shot, right,
and he
yeah.
drew 2 of Jaggy.
Yeah, you're right.
Or 3, because he had to bind 1 for Jaggy. Oh, this is gonna be intense. I think there's no heals left for Nuno too, because I think he guarded with the rest of them.
I think he's only guarded with 2. I think there should still be 1 heal left in his deck.
That would be a dream come true.
So is Tushintilga going to Soul Blast the Monk to revive it? Is he going to take that risk?
I don't see why not. It's also just a grade 2. It's fine.
I just don't think he has any other ways of making an offense. So this is where Tushintilga only playing 2 copies of Fencer is going to come back to bite him, right? Because Fencer would be really good at this point in time.
Oh yes. Oh yes it would. Unfortunately, that's not going to be the case. Burst Monk, does he see the line? Does he see the line, the path that brought him here in the first place? Lady Fencer is found!
Oh, perfect.
That is what you want to see. It looks like he is not going to go for the Burst Monk. Instead, he is going to prioritize other targets here. Lady Battler.
Big booster, which I totally understand.
Alright, Lagranjard will be using her effect, or his effect rather.
Ooh, I don't know. I'm not sure about this, because if you just unlocked it with the Alter Ego, it would have been plus 10k, right?
Yeah.
That is correct. That is correct.
And I don't think he doesn't need the soul for anything else. I'm curious to see what his line is. So he's boosting with the Lagrange straight away as well. Again, like, because right now it's 15 plus 8, which is 23. So it's going to be 23 and then 25, as opposed to, say, 15 right now and then 33 second time. It's curious to hear his distributed numbers, but
that's going
all of it.
to be it. Nuno Raymundo, the world champion. He got close, but he couldn't survive the aggression from Tufshin Tulga's Messiah deck, from his amazing plays. But Nuno really tried his best. If only he would have been able to draw the book a little bit earlier. If only he could have gotten to that card draw a little bit faster and made use of that huge soul. But alas, Nuno's run, the world champion's run, will end in top 8, and Tufshin Tulga will be going forward to the top 4, taking Messiahs to greater heights.
Yeah, I think that was just really unfortunate from Nuno there. Like, he had the going first tempo, he had everything he needed. Tufshin Tulga took the risk and said, like, here's 2 Volcos, I'm going to commit, I'm going to go for it. And Nuno was able to guard despite having a handful of grade 3s. He just unfortunately didn't find enough pieces to, like, get the swing back. And even though Tufshin Tulga didn't hit the Vanguard restand with the Burst Monk, I think because Tufshin Tulga just checked all those crits in the early game, he had just enough shield value to efficiently guard everything. It was just once, the pendulum swung in just the wrong way there.
And sometimes those type of games do tend to happen. I feel that both of them still play to both of their strengths or what they had at a point in time. I think what we did discuss before is that Tuff needed to push aggression early, or at least put him to 3 or higher, which he ended up being able to do in the early game, which gave him a good pedestal to sit on while Nuno was trying to fight back as well from where he was at the vantage point.
Yes, that's exactly it. Like, he was able to not only build up, that kind of tempo from very early on, and I think from there on, like, even though he had to GSS, the pressure that Messiah has from turn 3, especially with a double Volco turn, is immense. Like, that melted through Nuno's entire hand. All the other Chatras he had in hand. Everything else, like the Chain Bolts, Full Bronto, everything he could have wanted melted through. And that was, I think, the turn that decided it, right? Because for Nuno, it meant I either have to lose all my pieces or pray for 6 damage heal and keep my pieces and win next turn. And he chose to survive, as everyone should. But alas, that ended up with a kind of lukewarm turn on his side, and Tufshin Tulga survived with no cards in hand, but no cards in hand means nothing for Messiahs that can just tutor out of their drop zone like that and be able to fight as long as the Lagrange is on the board. But I think we saw an amazing match between these 2 players, and I think that's a great way to start off top 8 for the day too.
Yeah, it's a paradigm that I really want to talk about because, remember, Alter Ego is a aggro deck at its core. It's just going to make stuff to the board. Sure, it needs 1 or 2 specific attackers, but this is going to make stuff and whack at you. Whereas Vanquisher is, at its core, a combo deck. You need binders and you need bindees. And Nuno saw a decent number of them. He saw a bunch of Jag shots early on, but he only saw 2 or 3 Chatura, didn't see many Chain Bolts. And then when it got to, say, his last turn, he had 1 Jaggy shot left. He had no bindees, he used all his Chaturas to guard, didn't see any more Chain Bolts, didn't see any more Full Brontos, and he just wasn't able to put forward the aggression that he normally could have. And that's why I think in that matchup, it's maintaining the tempo is really important, because as long as your opponent's on the back foot, that's what gives you the time to find those pieces that you would have needed to find otherwise. Again, the book, like you said, would have been amazing. It would have been draw 3 cards, which you could have really used, but it's just a case of getting the opportunity to, like, have that thing. He's got loads of draw ones, but they need to line up in such a way that they're actually effective. And in this case, they just weren't effective enough.
Yep, absolutely. It really just was a little bit not enough. He just needed a little bit more of a push. But alas, this is still, how the cookie crumbles. It was an insane matchup. I think the other top 8 games are still ongoing, so we're going to have to wait a little bit for those results, unless we already have the bracket update. Okay, there's the bracket update so far. So Ryan, wait a second. Is this the new timeline? Both Messiah players already made it to top 4?
Oh, give me the Messiah finals, baby! I'm ready!
Oh my god, this is it. This is the EU region. So while we're still waiting on Brian and Chan's game, as well as Mervin versus Pierre, which of course the bottom side is the Luard versus the Prism, and then the top side is the Prism versus Melody. How do you think it's going to pan out? Like, let's say for Ryan, for Messiah versus Highlander or Prism, which one do you think is the least worst matchup there?
Unfortunately, I think Melody beats Messiah because if you think about it, they're both kind of the same deck, right? Like really big number on Force 2 with that fourth attack that Force decks aren't usually accustomed to getting. The difference is that Messiah needs to either hit the Grandyard into Volko or be able to alter ego and then clear frame it or Volko it out. Oh, sorry, Lagrangiard to unlock it. Whereas all Melody has to do is just soul charge its pieces and it's good to go.
Yep, that is true.
And
That
the
is true.
difference
What
as well
about
is that they're both reliant on these big cards that have no shield value. You know, Volko has grade 4 no shield value, Melody has a bunch of grade 2s with no shield value. But the difference is Melody gets shield value, Volko doesn't.
true? True. That is a very good point. What about the bottom side between Mervin's Prism and Pierre's Luard? What's the matchup breakdown for Messiah there?
I think it's slightly Luard favored. You know, Luard can retire, like, Luard wants to be retiring Volkos all the time. Messiah doesn't necessarily want to be reanimating Volkos all the time.
Mm.
For Prism, I'm not so sure about this. It's not a matchup that I've thought about very often, but I would assume slightly Prism favored. They have the insane plussing, they can grind it out, and as we just said, Messiah is an aggro deck. It doesn't have the capability of grinding as much as other decks do, especially in Tushin Tolga's build where he's not running the Van Manen. So I think it's if Prism makes it through to the semifinals, I think it could be a very much an uphill battle.
That
What do
is
you think, JJ?
definitely true.
I would agree with this one here. If the bracket was flipped, if Tushin Toga was in Ryan's spot, he probably might have a better time since he would have been a bit more aggressive with his version of the build with clear frames and etc. Whereas Ryan's game plan is a bit more grindy, is a bit more late game oriented, is more resource oriented. Possibly could be also a way for him to get into the game and stay in the game as well.
That is true. That is absolutely true. And I can't wait to see how this bracket is going to develop as these games are concluding. It's going to be super, super exciting, but we still have so much more action for you guys. We are going to go for a short break before we get to the top 4. We had a really exciting, high-stakes top 8 match for you guys just now. We're going to take a break, allow the rest of the top 8 games to finish. We'll come back, give you an update on the bracket, and then run into our top 4 match. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back very soon. Thank you for waiting, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to BRO 2021 V Premium. We're now advancing to the top 4 stage. Your commentators, as always, are myself, JJ, and Ben. We've been here with you guys the entire time, and we're going to stay with you until the very end. This was a very exciting top 8 that we got to see, and there's still more. Right now, the bracket is looking really exciting. Fellas, how are you feeling about the game so far and the games coming up as well?
The semifinals is going to be hella spicy. Both decks we did not expect to see being pushed forward. We're going to be see some well-known decks already, but I'm really excited for the other ones. I'm an underdog. I'm a rooter for underdogs, so I'm happy to see underdogs make it.
Absolutely, Ben.
Yeah, just somehow 2 Messiahs made it to top 8, and they both made it through to the semis, so I can't be upset about that. It means that we get to keep talking about Link Joker from the near future. Whether or not they make it to the finals is another story. I'm gunning for it, but we will. We're gonna need to stay unbiased as we watch the semifinals here.
Oh yeah, and it's gonna be very exciting. We have a lot of variety in the top 4 as well. Let's take a quick look at the bracket update because I do want to highlight, who has advanced to the top 4, and this way we can also talk about which decks are currently in here as well. So right now we have Ryan from the Philippines who is playing with that Messiah list that we saw earlier, doing really, really excellent. And the one to advance between Brian and Chan is actually going to be Brian, who was playing Melody. So that is going to be Melody taking the game over Prism, which I think is very exciting, and that means that there are no Prisms in the top 4. What about the bottom side of the top 4 bracket, JJ?
So we have Pierre, who was playing against actually another Prism list. So we were kind of speculating a little bit during the break, how this deck would have done, and I'm really interested to see how he's going to be playing against Tushin Tulga, playing Messiahs as well. This is going to be a pretty uncommon matchup, I think, because both matchups are pretty uncommon for this tournament, since we have not seen Messiah since 2019, I think. So this is gonna be great. I'm excited. I'm really, really excited.
Same. It's gonna be a great set of top 4 matches, and there's still the potential for a Messiah finals, which is crazy to think about. But now we're gonna be focusing on Ryan and Brian's showdown. This is gonna be Messiahs versus Melody. Both decks, they want to see specific pieces and they want to just stomp the opponent with high power, very aggressive lines of play. And the other side is going to be Luard versus Messiah. We're going to see who is going to rise to the ranks. It's quite literally, we have like the EU side of the bracket on the bottom side and the international side of the bracket on the top side. But no matter what, we will have a European representative in the finals from the bottom side of the brackets. That's very hype as well. See who's going to take it all at the end of the day. But of course, once the players are ready, we're going to go into our semifinals match here between Ryan and Brian. This is going to be a match to get hyped about, that is for sure.
Yeah, I've just got a quick joke to make here, which is that, like JJ said, none of the Prisms in top 8 managed to convert to top 4, which, given the joke we made yesterday about how we were trying so hard to shield all the viewers from seeing Prism games because we expected day 2 to be just full of Prism, and that just hasn't happened. So yeah, instead you guys get to watch the Melody game insteed.
Yeah, it's crazy how it worked out. It's crazy how that worked out.
I really no, because it has been such a really interesting weekend, because of course I don't think we can show too much of what the other rounds were worth, but the conversion rate of the Bermudas was hella so high, upwards until I think round 6 or 7, was it, Ben? I think.
Yeah, I think it was round 6. I mean, even at the end of the Swiss, we had only 2 Prisms made it through to top 8. But when you look at top 16, I think between 9th and 16th were 6 Prism players in that bubble there. So yeah, that kind of tells you everything you need to know, right?
It was a very interesting one indeed. So let's how far are we right now with the
But as it doesn't seem like it'll be resolved for a bit of time, I just got info from the staff. We're going to try to see if we can take a look at the other top 4 game. I apologize for having to jump into another game midway through like that. But unfortunately, that is, sometimes you can't predict what's going to happen with the internet, what's going to happen with your computer. If the sound randomly cuts out and you suddenly can't hear your opponent and the game can proceed. It's small things like that you've really, again, that's the nature of online play. Sometimes there are issues that cannot be accounted for, right?
Mm. I mean, unexpected situations do tend to happen every now and again, and being prepared for it is half the battle.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a shame that we couldn't see that game's conclusion. I mean, I said at the beginning that it's ever so slightly melody favored, but whiffing G-assist twice for Ryan definitely didn't do him any favors. And as much as I would have liked to see his attempt at a comeback, I think things are the way we are. But like you said, we're going to try and jump into the other table, which is Tufshin Tolga's other Messiah list versus Pierre's Luard. We'll see how that works out.
Yep, that is right. So I'm curious how the match is going. Considering that matchup, I could imagine that it is going to potentially go into the long game as well. Potentially. All right, but it looks like, much like the technical issues we had in the game, we also were having a little bit of technical issues on the side, and the boys were just frozen, stuck in time and space over here. But
you could say locked, huh?
True.
Oh my god. God.
Oh, and now it appears we are also minimizing, but that is absolutely fine. So we're going to be trying to see if we can take a look at the next game here and see if we can jump into the other top 4. Thank you so much, everyone, for bearing with us. Unfortunately, there are sometimes events like this that take place, and we have to just, make up for the issues and try to do what we can with the situation at hand. But we will be trying to jump into the other table. Of course, if the...
So
right.
while we wait for the other match to come up, let's talk about the worst case scenario world line, right? I keep saying that I want to see a Messiah mirror in the finals, but we see that things just aren't going well for Ryan. If we assume that things don't go well for Tufshin Tolga and it ends up being a Luard versus Melody matchup, like that's a possibility that I'd like to explore a little bit, right? Because one thing you mentioned earlier is you were talking to Haripin, one of the big Japanese names, and he was saying how the reason Prism isn't as popular in Japan is because over there people say like, well, if I want to play like a grindy, not massive multi-attack, but very heavy plus, very gradual attack combo, I would rather just play Luard, right, instead of Prism, because they're basically the same deck. And yet we saw that Brian was able to beat out Prism in his first top 8 game. But there are some fundamental differences between Prism and Luard that I think might give Luard the edge against Melody, specifically being that Luard will stack force markers. So even though Melody's generating these 10, 15, 20k shield intercepts with their Melody effects, Luard is like, nah man, here's a 50, 60k swells. Like, you still have to deal with this. It's got base crit 2. None of Prism's things have base crit 2. So if we get to that situation, I think the fact that Luard's attacks come at virtually no cost, but only keep getting more aggressive, is what I think will push it over the edge against both Messiah and Melody, should we get to that point.
I think it's also one of the things, too, is that Luard has one extra feature that a lot of these archetypes currently in this top 4 doesn't have. It has the ability to retire key pieces that give extra bonuses to the other units. So you can get rid of the Fina, it can get rid of the Sierra, it can get rid of any of the other utility pieces that are currently on the board via the skill of Dragheart. Just allows you to tempo a whole lot. So you'll have to tell your opponent, well, if you have more copies of it, then you got it, buddy. But I'm going to keep on trimming your board down until you figure out how to deal with it.
Exactly. And even in the case of Messiah, like we say, Messiah can keep reviving Volcos and then unlocking them with Lagrangeard, but that's going to cost Counterblast, that's going to cost resources. And we can see here, I think this is the first time we've ever, you look at Tufshin Tolga's damage zone. This is the first time we've seen Messiah with more than 2 damage face down at any given moment, right? because
Yeah.
he's been spamming that Blast Monk, he's been spamming that Lagrangeard, because Luan would just say pop, 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 pop. In fact, the fact that he even still has a Volko on the board at all, I think is incredible.
Mm-hmm. You're
One
right.
quick-
And Mhm.
Oh, go ahead, JJ.
No, I mean, I wasn't going to say anything. Go ahead.
Oh, well, just getting into this match, I want to also give an update for the other top 4 match that we initially were showing. So, unfortunately, it was found that on the Bermuda side, those were unlicensed sleeves, as they were non-official Bushiroad sleeves, and therefore, as a result, we are not allowed to show that on stream. And as a result, when you are watching the VODs, maybe you're watching the VODs here already, and in the future, that game will be cut out and not be shown, as we are unable to feature such merchandise. So it is unfortunate. He has been given a warning and asked that if he makes the finals, he will be asked to change sleeves. But if he's unable to change sleeves, then the penalty will be greater. So as a result, we are watching the tail end here of the top 4 match between Pierre and Tufshin Tulga. Luard versus Messiah. We can see this game has gotten into the 11th hour already. 5 force markers on Pierre's side. And of course, Tufshin Tulga already, on 4 damage. Pretty big hand. I'm assuming we're on like turn 4/5 here.
I think so. We see 2 Drag Hearts in PS Soul, which is really huge. He's got his base 2 crit across all his grade 1 Ray Guards. We saw him just as we come in that he was thinking about attacking Morfessa first with the boost. But this is a line that I've highlighted before. I really like having the swells not as a target for the Morfessa, but as a back row, so that when you go into your bats, when you go to your Abyss Router for the 5th attack, you have 2 really huge boosters. But instead, we see here Pierre's actually boosting with the Branwen, which, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. I just find that maybe it's a bit more effective to save the power for these quote-unquote weaker bats. Which, again, actually segues into another interesting question, which is, we don't see, unfortunately, we can't see Pierre's drop zones. We don't know if he's going to set up for bats or Abyss Router. But if he is he going to be going for the Vanguard swing first to put triggers onto those bats / Abyss Router? Or is he going to go into the Vanguard now to put the triggers onto that massive Morfessa?
Well, I think to answer your first or second question here, we did take a look at the Luard Soul, and there does seem to not be any bats in the Soul yet. So I think it's probably going to be the Router play. That's probably what it's going to go for. And one thing to note, if he does end up doing that, the Router will have crit, but the unit that he called off of the Router will not have crit.
Right, it's a grade 0.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Of course, he does have 3 Luards in Soul, so even if the Soul Blast cost for the Abyss Router won't take away his base 2 crit, which is, again, the fact that the grade 0 won't have Soul is one reason that people prefer the Bat play, because it's a grade 1, it has the base crit. The other thing to note that if he just chooses not to go for 5 attacks, he's going for the regular 4 attack combo here, both of his Swells are in play. So the best target for that Morfessa to reanimate is going to be a 13k Branwen.
Yeah.
That's right. Now, one important thing is also, since Tufshin Tulga is at 4 damage, this is a situation where if you can't guard all 4 to 5 attacks this turn, the only one you can afford to take is that Vanguard one, and pray they don't hit a crit on the Vanguard swing. And this is, from the way that he has been fanning out the cards in hand, I think that's a gamble Tufshin Tulga is going to have to take.
Yeah, he has quite a lot of cards in hand, but at the same time, Pierre has quite a lot of force markers. And we see 1 draw PG in Tufshin Tulga's damage zone face up. In fact, we actually... Tufshin Tulga G-assisted as well. You can see right there, there's the Volko and the Clear Frame, but no, he's taking...
He's
Trying to heal out, and he's not gonna do it! Oh no, Tufshin Tulga. His hand was huge, but not enough, but you can see it was 1 PG and a bunch of grade 1s. The raw shield value in that hand was just not great enough to survive.
Like we said, right? Luard's going to stack those force markers. You have to guard early because you're just not going to be able to guard later on. And we see that come through. Like, Tufshin Tulga was at 4 damage. It just reached a point where he just couldn't guard those attacks, and that was it. And this has always been the downside of Messiah, which is that you have to play 4 copies of this grade 4 that doesn't really do anything otherwise. So your ratios have to be skewed really badly. Like, even though you're running Burst Monk, you're still running a very low number of grade 2s. You're running just about the right number of grade 1s because you have Lagrangeard, you have Manipulator, you have White Dwarf. But by forcing in those extra grade 3s, like the Harmonics and the Clear Frame, to be able to enable that Burst Monk, you have to make sacrifices elsewhere. Like, If we look at, say, a quote-unquote normal Messiah list from just before Clan Collection, it was 4 Volko, 4 Clearframe, 4 Alter Ego, 4 Fencer, 4 Gastrol, maybe 1 or 2 of either Burst Monk or Thundering Foot, and then some number of Van Marnens, White Dwarfs, Manipulators. And if you want to add Lagrange Jars, you can do that. But even that's a slightly more reasonable option. But once you start expanding that, okay, I'm going to replace some clear frames with harmonics. I'm going to add more grade 3 so I can get Burst Monk off. I'm going to shove in Burst Monks all together. You're going to have to make concessions elsewhere, and it's just not. We see that both Messiah players had to G assist, and they both lost fairly important cards. They both G assisted away a clear frame. A Volko was gone as well. It's just in a situation like top 8, where every single moment matters, every single game matters. I said before how in only 3 rounds of top 8, but you want that X factor to win you that 10% of games you wouldn't win otherwise. You also don't want to expose yourself to that 10% of games that you lose that you would otherwise win.
Especially in situations like this. Matchup where you feel like, if I hit all my pieces I need to, and my deck runs fine, I could probably have a battle. Winning or losing might be up to either, flipping a particular trigger, or it might be up to tempoing a particular card, or maybe getting your Volk online earlier in comparison because you have a whole lot of outs to it. You have Manipulators, you have Gustra, you have Lanyard. There's a whole lot of outs to get your Volks on board, but when you're not able to get your grade 2 even on time is rough, and especially if you need to play like 9 to 10 grade 2s, which can hamper your game plan a whole lot. Yeah,
for sure. Of course, I think at this point, I'm starting to accept the brutal reality that we're not going to see them in the finals. It's just definitely tears coming down my face, but hope is not over for the Messiah players. There is still a 3rd, 4th place match to play off for. There's still that 1 box of Clan Collection Volume 3 and the 1 copy of the Chronojet promo. It's like it's definitely worth coming back for that. And it's a shame that we can't show you that Messiah mirror in the 3rd, 4th place playoff because we're showing you the finals instead. But I think we can all agree that no matter what comes out there, both players can be very proud of themselves for taking Link Joker to the last vestiges of an event like this.
Absolutely. I think it's very much deserved for our Messiah representatives for their amazing finishes. Even if they don't make it to finals, or if they just make it to 3rd place, it's going to be fantastic. It's a deck nobody expected to do so well, and it's been a great top 8 so far too. And I can't wait to see who's going to make it to finals as well. And I'm sure we're all very excited. But as the games are wrapping up, we are going to go for a short break as we get ready and prepare for the final match, the final showdown. We know Pierre is in there already, but who will be the one that he's going to face off against? We'll find out very soon. So don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be back after a short break for the final match.
My name's Ron Manangkil. Lots of people know me as Shiro Neko. I am the BSFO AO champion, and I topped with Blade Master. Yeah. Actually, I was already planning ahead of the Blade Master loop when Soen was announced. I already started visionizing the deck. The problem was securing some premium parts, which was mainly the Tempeспhere and Zazan, and in the end I didn't even get to use them because I wasn't able to secure a set of each because our shop here only had 2 boxes of premium collection, so we weren't able to really gather parts. And so preparing for the event, I was just watching videos on like WCC and Different Fights channel on the meta, and thinking of how I can counter that without using the vanilla engine and doing the turbo engine. And in the end, I also thought of the mirror match because thinking of the meta, you're obviously gonna encounter your own meta deck, and so to take the meta into account, you have to really think of the mirror match too. So yeah, that's how I prepared for BSFO. I actually participated in BCS starting 2017. I wasn't really a competitive player back then because I was really busy with other things like school competitions and other fights. But yeah, those were the only ones that I joined because BSFO, Springfest rather, was not really in my place. It was in the main city in Manila, so I wasn't really able to participate with that. But BCS, I participated yearly starting from 2017. Well, I think I met a lot of interesting people for sure. I met Kendo from Team Rising Dragons, and I met Derek Dow from WCC when he came here for BCS, and I also met like I made many friends through BCS because there are some players that don't join weekly tournaments, but when a huge event comes, you suddenly see all these people pop up. I would also want to give a shout out, by the way, to the BCS 2019 champion. He's also a Cebuano. He's one of the only people I know from Cebu that also won a Bushiroad event. I want to give him love. His name is Vince Del Rosario. I think he deserves more love than me because he wasn't able to actually go to Japan due to personal reasons. So I want to give him the spotlight too. I think for BSFO I was kind of like I was scared at first to join because as you said it's through a webcam and like cheaters may pop up once or twice, but actually unexpectedly the judges were actually really well organized. They were monitoring the entire situation, and it was a pretty fun event actually. It was nice to participate through my own home, and I didn't have to go down or risk like getting COVID, especially now, to just join an event, which is really nice. It was really convenient. I posted in my Instagram story the progress through of like how the event went, and I was also watching the stream, so I could like study the other decks that were on stream. It was pretty fun to like see everyone react to the Instagram story because not a lot of people knew about the event here. So it's pretty nice to see like people react and stuff. Well, my advice for BRO, if you're a seasoned player, I suggest you study the meta since it's a pretty wild west meta right now, and literally anything could happen. And for new players, I would say don't be scared, just do your best, and you know it's a free tournament. You win, you lose, you don't lose anything, so it's all right. Just calm down, and I'm rooting for all of you. Follow me on, if you guys want to follow me on Instagram, it's hello Ishiro. Just hit me up if you guys want to chat, hang out, or even play remote fight. So thank you and good luck to everyone. I hope to see you all, and I hope to see everyone in top 8 also. Well, not everyone, but yeah. I hope everyone does well.
Weiss Schwarz!
Time to make your move, little sister.
Then I guess I'll attack your character.
Aha! I saw that coming, and I'll counter your attack with me!
Ruby, now coming to Weiss Schwarz.
As an English edition original.
Trial Deck Plus, Booster Pack, and Supply Set.
On sale December 17th.
Bushiroad!
Cardfight Vanguard Overdress! Power up your deck with these new cards! Journey forth with your new allies! Booster Pack Advance of Intertwined Stars coming soon! Bushiroad!
Cardfight Vanguard Overdress! It's your leader, Mirai! Look how cool Bob Sartre is with the new arms card! Start deck, Sealed Blaze Maiden, coming soon! Bushiroad!
Hi, I'm Kalen Fallon. I'm the BSFO Vanguard Overdress winner for Europe. And the deck I used was Bruce. Lovely Bruce. Preparing for BSFO was mostly to do in a small friend group because the fun thing about Standard at the time was the lack thereof, not based because of the format, but lack thereof matchups to learn against. And it takes less time to really develop and understand, hey, so in this I'm going to do this, and in this I'm not going to do this, which makes it feel a lot more like free and less diverse than what the other formats hold at the moment. Prior to BSFO, I've been playing in BCSs and Team Leagues since 2015, and in 2019 I got an invite to a World Finals for V Premium, and the continent that I normally play in is Europe. I love BCS. I am a huge fan of BCSs. Going out to events to meet people that you've, say, either known already or haven't seen in a while or only know via online. It's just that like whole community coming together that makes the Bushiroad events really, really satisfying and fun to go to. And generally just seeing all the different decks and different people just makes it just a lot of fun. Despite not being as community wholesome as BCS is, it's still incredibly fun because you can still you still meet people like you'd never meet because despite being stuck to your desk or the floor, you can meet anyone at any country. But like, so say you meet an American, you meet this is in my case an American, you meet someone in Australia, you'd never play against them like ever, or it's a lot more diverse. And honestly, it like kind of helps with the lack of in-person communication that is the only letdown I think of Remote Fight at the moment. And in between rounds, it means I can just go into a call with a bunch of friends, like mostly my local friends, and then we can talk about, hey, did you win? Did you lose? How did it go? My main advice is to try to broaden your player base. Obviously, this can range. To say, if you're in a small country, you can always try to go out to different locals, because that's something I like to do, because going to different locals means you meet more people, you meet different type of decks. It leads to, like, say you'd never go against this deck unless you went here. So running into different decks means that you just get a bigger broad of like what to do when you go into a competitive. Obviously, if you're not in a small country, that just changes to like trying out different discords, because that's just the easier way to at home or just in general just meet more people and then just have more fun, I guess. Anyway, good luck to everyone else participating in Bro 2021, and I hope to see you there too.
Wow!
Now that Decklog is available, you can register your deck list for tournaments with ease. If you have not used Decklog before, no worries, we have a tutorial video. You can find both the links to Decklog and the tutorial in the description box. Now, due to the shenanigans from the last event, this time we will be introducing a new procedure into the tournament. We will be conducting spot checks by requesting a player in a room to show us that nobody is nearby to give them help, that there are no extra cards or suspicious items around. First, the players who will be checked are based on a highly scientific method employed by many entities and game designers all over the world. Hi Player 456, you have been chosen for a spot check through a fair and impartial system.
Oh, I've been selected? Okay. So first of all, this is my table, and as you can see, I'm playing Lyrical Monasterio. I love Lyrical Monasterio so much because the characters are so pretty and so cute. Okay, now I'll show you my room. So hi, this is the room that I usually play Vanguard in, and as you can see, there's no one else here but me.
Okay, good, thank you.
I'd like to show you Vanguard collection. I've been playing Vanguard ever since the first release, and I also have my showcase here. I have G series, V series, and Overdress.
Thank you
Not
for
only that, I
cooperating.
love Weiss Schwarz as well. I play Persona 5, and I have a lot of other collection over here, as you can see. Very nice, I know. Thank you.
Good to know we have such an enthusiastic fan. Anyway, there have not been any incidents where we found players cheating with external help, but we hope this extra layer of precaution will deter any attempts, as well as reassuring all participants. On a side note, please do not use your phone during the tournament. This has been a rule for physical tournaments all along, and it is not any different for online tournaments. Players caught using their phone during a match is considered an infraction.
First infraction, you get a warning. Second infraction, you get disqualified.
We meet again.
Yes, but this time it will be a different fight.
Oh! Guard! Over, Doriga! Please don't heal, please don't heal, please don't heal!
And the championship goes to Chris!
Okay, yeah, that was a good fight. Thank you for the game.
That match was so close. Thank you so much for the game as well.
So Judge, when will this game be uploaded to the official Bushiroad YouTube channel? I want to show my friends like the epic fight I just had with Chris.
Oh yeah, I want to show my friends too.
Because one of you used a playmat with a yellow rat and a blue turtle.
Actually, it's closer to a tortoise than a turtle.
As we can't show merchandise that isn't from Bushiroad, we can't upload the match. During our last tournament, there were a number of exciting matches that we think players would love to watch. However, because unofficial merchandise were used, we couldn't upload the videos. Non-official Bushiroad merchandise are not allowed in tournaments. This includes card sleeves, playmats, and any other objects appearing in your video. Dragon Shield and Ultra Pro generic sleeves with no art are allowed. If you do not have an official Bushiroad playmat, you can buy one at our Bushiroad online store. You can find the link in the description box below. We have a lot of beautiful card sleeves and back boxes, all of which are allowed in the tournament. And from now till December 10th, if you use my code, you'll get 5% discount, 5, for all TCG related products. Use the code BROTHER2021. That's brother, not brother. BROTER 2021. While stocks last. Okay, fine. You can also flip over your playmat and play on it.
Hi everyone! So in order to distinguish between offline and online tournaments, we have rebranded it to Bushiroad Rumble Online, BRO or BRO for short.
That's right, if this is your first time participating, we've created a video with some rules and do's and don'ts to take note of.
We've also included some links to useful videos such as how to shuffle and how to prepare for a remote fight. And the links to all these videos will be available in the description box below.
That's right, please do take a look at the tournament page where there will be more detailed rules and information.
Alright, thank you!
Hope you guys have fun. See you there. Bye.
See you there! Bye bye! See you there, bro!
Bro.
Bro.
That's all we have for today's video, and I really hope you guys enjoyed it. During Bushiroad Springfest Online, we had a lot of players, both new and experienced veterans, come into some of their first online tournament experiences through Remote Fight, and we got to see some amazing narratives develop. Some people start new chapters in their competitive history, some people start playing competitively for the first time ever, and I can't wait to see how the stories and the narratives of these players will further develop throughout Bushiroad Rumble Online. In case you don't already know, I will actually be commentating all of the Vanguard stages for Bushiroad Rumble Online, so I can't wait to see you guys in the chat for the tournament.
This couch I got on sale, it was like very cheap and it's very good as well. So I recommend you guys to go and get it. Not only that, I have a lot of Bushiroad posters. I love Bushiroad games. Oh my god, I'm so happy.
Hello Serene, thanks for joining me in this Coffee of Bushiroad series. Yeah, I understand you have been with Bushiroad for like a couple of months now, at this time of shooting. Yeah, and you do marketing for Vanguard.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, so as you can see, we have prepared a little bit of snacks and coffee, tea, and some drinks for us. Yeah, so before we begin the interview, what would you like? Coffee or tea or water for you?
Tea.
Tea?
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, all right, Serene. So you are the marketer for Vanguard. So maybe you could market to us, just a bit of the kind of work that you do on a day-to-day routine.
Okay, I do. As a marketer, I mainly do the marketing materials. Then, so there's like you manage the the stuff that goes on to social media, and then you do newsletters, and then you also liaise with other departments like the design team, the video team, to make sure that you get accompanying materials to put together. I mean, that go together to present to fans.
Okay.
Content. Yeah.
So you actually do have to communicate with a lot of different departments for your job as marketing.
Definitely.
Okay.
Because I mean, as marketing is not, I mean, not everything comes out of the marketer alone. So like say for example, I mean the banners, definitely you need the design team, and then if there are video showcases, then there's a specialized team for that. So I mean, I think that's also one of the good parts of being a marketer, because I mean you get to work with many people while wearing many hats. At the end you get something nice to present to the fans and viewers. I think that's a nice end products that you can get out of marketing.
And then as the marketing in charge for Vanguard, which is one of our best selling titles, do you ever feel like the pressure to perform, you know, as compared to, let's say you were to handle something else? Would you feel like, oh, I need to, you know, step up my game all the time because you're feeling all this pressure?
I would say half on this. It is natural to feel pressured to deliver more results as compared to other products. But at the same time, from a marketing standpoint, you have a lot of data to work with. So it's good that I'm thankful that I have more data and insights to look at and to see, okay, so from there, how can I improve? Or what kind of new things I can present to everyone. Yeah.
Okay. Now I understand as marketing, you deal with quite a bit of sensitive information, especially information probably from Japan. But is there anything that you can share with us? That how were you able to use like the data that you mentioned in order to do something like a marketing campaign?
Actually, for data, it can come in a variety. So say for example, you can use like sales statistics to look at how did each past product perform, and then for other initiatives, you can look at so what kind of campaigns have been done before, how did they perform. They are not materials that spoon feed you answers, but it is something good for you to infer from and work something from there. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess as marketing, you actually have to work a lot on data as well.
Okay, at least for this industry, it is not entirely e-commerce based. So I would say the reliance on data is still there, just that I personally, in my opinion, it is not as much as, So like say for example, if you're an e-commerce based company, most likely even your sales, everything, it's all online, and those data you have to rely on more as compared to non-e-commerce platforms. Your data is separated and you need to piece them together. And
it is finally time for the final battle, the final showdown of the day for the V Premium BRO 2021 EU tournament. We are your casters, myself, Chris, JJ, and Ben. We're going to bring you the action for this final set, for this final game that will decide who will be the winner that goes home with 4 of the promotional Chrono Jets that were exclusive to Japan as a VMC winners promo before. We got some hype decks to take a look at, boys, but how are we feeling so far? This is the last leg of the tournament, the final stage. What do we think?
I think it's been a wild ride, a little ups and downs, some hit and misses, but I am excited that we are finally here at the peak of what competitive Vanguard could be, and I'm excited to see how it turns out.
Yep, absolutely. What about you, Ben?
Man, the last 24 hours have definitely been an experience in many, many ways. I am a little bit heartbroken that we are not seeing the Messiah mirror match in the final in the end, but I think the fact that we have one player in the finals that I think kind of makes up for it. So it should be in a pretty interesting game. Looking forward to it. And again, like I said before, the two Link Joker players still have third and fourth to play out. So we'll update you on how that goes. But I think for now, there's enough. There's not much more preamble we need to go through. I think we can just jump into the deck lists. We can take a look at Brian playing Melody versus Pierre with Shadow Paladin. So starting off is Brian. So we've discussed this Melody deck at the beginning of the topic, but we'll just go over it again. It's all about hitting that cannon, all about soul charging your Melody effects, getting huge amounts of power, and just going for it. And, we've discussed all the bits and pieces, but JJ, what do you think is going to be key here going into this matchup?
I think going to the matchup, it's going to be very key for Brian here to damage deny Luard, or at least to keep them off of the Leofall turn 2. It's going to be very important in this matchup, and especially with a whole lot of the pieces that they need to go off with. Plant doesn't necessarily need too much CB to go off. Maybe like with the 1 or the 2 off chance of CB they might need, maybe for Plant herself, maybe for your other extra grade ones you might probably have or anything like that. But most of it is soul based. You're not going to need a whole lot of CB.
Okay. One interesting that I was going to bring up here when you mentioned damage deny, the way that Sierra, the grade 1, is worded very specifically means that if Brian goes first and makes a board and puts Sierra in the back row, Pierre can't choose to damage deny by attacking the rear guard. He has to either just pass or attack the Vanguard and give Brian that damage. So if you're saying that damage deny is going to be critical in this matchup, then I think Sierra is going to be the card that's going to, if Brian hits it early, I think it's going to be the make or break.
Yep. I think also when talking about some of the deck counts here as well, he does have some interesting choices, right? The running the one of Serena, we don't actually see that much. Like that lets you have some like on-hit recovery, but most deck lists choose to forego it because it's not as valuable as 4 cannons, which you really, really need in order to turn on your soul charging. So only running 3 of those. I wonder if that's gonna work out until the very end. It's worked out so far. He's in the finals, and he only runs a combination of 4 Finas between the grade 3s and the grade 2s, and that's basically like the biggest shield power that you have in the deck. And when you're running, a low 8 grade 1 count, you are relying on like the tanky Fina turns, and so not being able to use multiples of those might also hinder some of his gameplay. So he's really prioritizing, like 8 Sonatas in this deck, right? We have 3 of the grade 3 Karo as well. So I'm curious to see how it's going to play out for Brian here. But of course, we also have his opponent Pierre Mahuto representing France together with Luard. And of course, this is a deck that we've talked about a lot, and he is an excellent pilot. We caught a little bit of his camera setup earlier as we were going into the stream, and he has like a whole shrine of Shadow Paladin merch that was distributed at the 10th anniversary in Japan, basically surrounding him and supporting him to make sure that him and his Shadow Paladin friends make it out and win the entire thing.
Yeah, and going back to what you're saying earlier about how Brian's reliant on those shield value cards to really help him get there. Luard is a deck with really reliable, consistent retire, so that's gonna possibly come back to bite him as well. And if he loses those shield values, the fact that Pierre's not all in on the bats, he's not all in on the routers, as we saw in the previous game. He was just going for the big swings with just the stacking forces on the Morfessa. It's gonna be really hard for him to guard that. And this is the one situation where I think Branwen is actually coming into a good spot, because the important thing about Branwen is that if you're going for the bat turn and you're going for these multi-attacks, then Branwen is the next best attacker you can get, because you want the Suels as a 20k booster for your bats in the back row so that your bats can actually hit a reasonable number. So having the 13k Branwen on its own on say 2 or 3 force markers is going to really give him even with just 2 force markers, that's a 33k column. That's 25k shield that Brian has to give up to guard that attack or take the crit 2 damage. So this might work out for him in the long run. Given that I've said that I'm not personally a huge fan of Branwen in the short run, so I think it's definitely going to work out for him. We talked about the 3 drag drivers. We talked about the split between routers and bats. But something else I want to touch on is the 1 Decron and the 2 Karens. So just like with Brian, Pierre's running a much leaner of the defensive items, and he's running much more aggressive on the offensive items. And because Brian doesn't have retire, maybe Pierre can get away with this. But at the same time, Brian's numbers are going to be bigger out of the gate, but they're not going to grow that much more. Whereas Pierre's is going to start off quite small, but then grow bigger and bigger. So, what's your take on this, JJ? Like, what do you think the leaner defensive options for both players is going to mean for them going into this matchup?
Well, of course, going into the earlier stages of the tournament in the Swiss rounds, having a more aggressive slanted deck and having less defensive options was probably one of the given things, especially in the best of one format, especially since, running more crits is more advantageous to you, running more aggressive pieces is more advantageous to you because it's just more consistent. Whereas now that they're in the finals, right, we'll have to see whether or not they'll be going for some of the defensive options, because I would expect Pierre probably try to fish into the crowd pretty early to get the initial intercept off of his grade 1s, probably try to set up his drop zone so that his Morfessa can probably get him some extra push. And of course, him getting 3 force markers on his first turn is also going to be relatively important. We can't miss a beat here. They need to hit their ride every single turn that they need it. They cannot miss a beat, because that's something that can happen when playing Luard at times.
Sure, it's all about the tempo, I think. You say, getting up that early to Crom is important, because as soon as Melody writes to grade 3, their columns are going to be 46, 53, etc., etc. To the point where the Crom's intercepting 2 grade 1s to guard is actually not going to be enough to guard that circle. Whereas conservatively, his Fina, 1 Fina on the rear guard circle and 1 grade 2 Fina in the soul makes his grade 3s 15k intercepts. That's going to be enough to guard, only 3 force markers on the first grade 3 turn. But then as Luard retires those Finas, Luard's going to be looking at 40, 50, 60k power, which at that point, Fina versus no Fina, you have to PG that anyway, right?
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
So it's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic unfolds. But I think we've spent more than enough time talking about these decks, and I think we're just about ready to get into the games.
That is right. I think everyone's waiting to see the final showdown between these players. Brian VO and Pierre M. Both playing different decks and both trying to gun it for this first place finish in order to win themselves the greatest prize of them all, the 4 Chrono Jets. Having that many is incredible. Like, if you know how rare that card was in the Japanese format, my god, owning 4 is just beyond of a flex. Even in third, I would be happy with just 1. Put it in a nice little case, maybe hang it up on the wall. It is I think it is one of the best prize cards we've ever seen, but that might just be my favoritism speaking. I'm a huge Chrono Jet fan at this point, but it looks like both players here are getting ready to get started. We're going to also see who's going to be going first here. All right, looks like they are going to be deciding their mulligans, so they had not done that prior. So we're getting to see the game from the very start as well. And we're especially important for Brian's mulligan, as we know he plays a very low amount of grade 1s. See what he actually keeps. All right, looks like I do catch a Meep in there. So at the very least, that will allow him to have a nice opening ride that will hopefully find him a grade 2 if he doesn't have one already.
So it looks like Pierre and Brian look like they both mulligan 4, since both of them have very volatile decks with high grade 3 counts or high grade 1 counts. So they're trying to find the 1, 2, and 3 as quickly as efficiently as they possibly can.
Yeah, and Meep is an interesting one here, because if Brian's going first, Meep is going to provide immediate value. Sorry, going second. Whereas going first, you won't have either of the resources to do Meep, because if you're going first, your opponent's not going to be on grade 1, you can't Soul Blast for it. So we'll see, going first and second is going to also be a huge tempo swing, because if Brian goes second, it means that Pierre's already going to have the 3 force markers.
Yep.
So that he's going to have all his things online. Whereas Pierre going second, he's still going to be able to hit Brian really hard and get all the pluses he needs with Abyssal Owl.
Yep. But this does deny the Meep search on turn 1 for Brian going first, which is pretty huge.
Yeah, so he fires the CL, which is totally fine. But something, again, I brought this up last time, is that even though you're going first, you know that your opponent's turn 2 is absolutely going to be ride Liefeld, search for either Karen or Owl, and get some ridiculous pluses, as well as setting up the drop zone for Luard's effect. Does Brian pass, is the thing. We see that Pierre's drive checked one of his drivers, which is not great, but not the end of the world. but he is only running 3 as opposed to 4, which could cause problems later on the line.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the only other options that he could possibly do here is maybe like guard with it if he really doesn't want to ride it, if he doesn't have any other grade 3s. So he probably could go for a G assist to go for it, and he could get rid of one of the cards in a quick shield if he doesn't want to take too much damage here.
Yep, so there's the meep that does eventually come down. He is still choosing the counterblast for it rather than Soul Blast.
He does have to, because I think Soul Blast's only when they are the same grade.
Right, that's
so
it,
because he's grade 2, that
So he's
does
just
take that off the table.
So he is just desperate for the effect. I think does it have to be different names? Because I see 2 Sonata there.
Yeah, but he does checking it. And that's going to be the only find. We can pop that up for you guys as well, just to get a quick check on that. So it doesn't indeed say 2 different card names.
Yeah, so at least it's up to 1 the soul, so he does get the raw plus, but he can still choose put into soul if he values the 5k, which, you know, there is an argument that he might want to have done that anyway. But instead, he's just going to call down another CL. And again, something we saw in the previous round that might not have been made clear is that going for 3 columns rather than, say, 2 columns with the CL in the backline to protect the melody in the front is a very interesting option, because it means that if Pierre wants to damage an Brian now that he's using Skel's Counterblast, he can attack both of his rear guards while still maintaining that pluses from the Abyssal Owl.
Alright. The Sierra is going to get the search off, and finding the one and only card he actually wants to ride. So we can infer that maybe he didn't have that in his opening hand too. Having to actually reveal that Sonata does show us some information. And he did search for it quite aggressively between the Meep and the Sierra here as well.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also one thing that he's basically kind of set up already for the rest of the game now, seeing that he does have his plan online. So I guess on Pierre, I think you'd probably just want to attack the Sierra or the Meep here, just to deny the damage for next turn.
Oh, no, he's pulling them back. Oh, there we go. So there's the CL to protect the melody, as we discussed. But Brian's still going to commit another board. So that's still a target that Pierre can attack. And the thing here is that, yes, you might want to damage deny the Liefeld on turn 2, but at the same time, Luard isn't a deck that scales with Counterblast. So putting Luard to 3, the difference between 2 and 3 damage is minimal. So if you can rush them down early, that way when you have your Plon, you have your Force 2, and you have your 60Ks, this needs to be PG columns, that might be what you need, to actually round out the game in a timely manner.
Exactly. It looks like he's starting off with a really aggressive turn 2 here. I do like it though, because I feel like, you're giving up the counterblast for the Leofol here, because your option is either let the, pass and don't give them the Leofol, or just start off a little bit aggressive, so that way you can have a very strong turn 3, with all that pressure that you have from the high numbers and the Force 2 that you apply as well. And of course, he won't be able to get the extra marker, as Brian did go first, but it's still a really strong push while your opponent's on grade 2.
Yeah, and Pierre's just taking all of this damage, and 2 really important cards going to his damage zone there. The one of the Crom and one of his Drag Hearts. So he does ride the Liefeld, but like you said, searching for that early Decrom is no longer an option, because now the damage, he has to heal it out and put it back with the Drag Heart. And damaging one of his Drag Hearts, if he doesn't have one already to ride, this could be problematic. He does have the Brandwinds to search for Drag Hearts, as opposed to the knees that we see most other lists running. But damage one of his Brandwinds. He's only got 3 Brandwinds left in the deck. The amount of options he has to find that Drag Heart is now very limited.
We
have here the 3rd, 4th place result for you. So Ryan M is going to come out on top of that Messiah mirror match, beating out Tush and Tulga. So there you have it, folks. Ryan M from Canada will be the winner of that one-of Chronojet Dragon.
That is a huge dub as well. Being able to take Messiahs all the way to 3rd place as well. I think for both of these players, it's a great finish in top 4. Being able to just say, hey, we are the only Messiah players in the entire world that made it to the top 8 throughout this entire weekend. But here, Pierre focusing back on this final matchup. It's going to be an intense match, just because, of course, he has to, do so much farming basically during this turn in order to set up that drop zone, so he can just get that free Dragheart skill next turn, and also have the cards in hand in order to survive the next push from Brian here.
Yeah, exactly. And I did just say that Luar doesn't really scale with Counterblast. Like, that's kind of not exactly true. Like, every Counterblast is the Liefeld call. That's the only thing that the deck's really using Counterblast on, other than, like, Morpheses. But, these Abyssal Owls that Pierre's is searching for, to me, that implies that, maybe he's just looking for, like, maybe a Dragfall or, like, Dragheart or the pieces that he needs to get there. So, we'll see whether or not he can push back. And I think, again, like you say, the early aggro might be what determines this game, because as great as it would be to attack Brian's rearguards, he's got that he's got the damage deficit that he needs to make up somehow.
Mm-hmm. So let's see if he's gonna go out with all-out aggression here, because he could also be digging for Heal Guardians as well for the Plon turn that's coming. So this will probably end up dictating whether or not he's just gonna go for it or not.
Yeah. So he finds that Dragfall, which I think he's very happy to see. He might still have that Heal Guardian in hand. That could make a big difference, especially on the Force 2. But it's a situation now where both players are just filling up their boards and just trying to get that lead, because they know that once either deck gets going, it's going to be much, much harder to deal with.
All right, he
Discards
does
the
find the
Drag
Dragheart. I think that might be alluding to something being in his hand too. He's gonna have to start and recycle those drag drivers if he wants to keep using them. But looks like he's gonna respond with his own aggressive turn 2 here, swinging in with the Leofall column. He has the Brandman column as well, which I do believe will have its plus 5k condition active, as there are. Oh no, I think there's only one grade 1 in the drop zone right now, so.
Yeah, so it's not quite enough. So
Never
is
mind.
that an intercept, or is he attacking the rear? I think he's attacking the rear, right? Because intercept is not enough to hit.
Yeah.
So I think he was looking at killing both rears, but the CL obviously prevents the Sonata from being attacked. So Pierre just has to attack. He looks like he's attacking Van.
Okay.
Realizing that, okay, I can't wipe his board and damage tonight. I'm just gonna. Oh, the Heal Guardian is huge there.
That's
Heal off
very
the
big.
Necrom. That is an incredible 2-for-1. You get the defensive play against the Plon. You get your Necrom in the drop zone to put back into the deck with Luard. Absolutely perfect for Pierre.
But a defensive trigger goes off of Brian here. It's gonna be swinging for 15 into the rear. That's
Let
gonna
that
go to the
go.
front.
And then does this hit? I don't think it does, right? It's only 18?
It's 28 because you give the heal trigger to it.
He did have the trigger, right? So that's, again, equalizing the damage is also an extra bonus for Pierre right there as well then.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Brian is another deck that does kind of scale with Counterblast, because every Counterblast you give Melody is an extra Melody they can search, like an extra search effect for a Melody piece, which can get out of hand really quickly. We'll see if Brian wants to guard this. No, he's going to take it, and
Going
2
to 3
crits go
already.
down. Yeah, that's also really good for Pierre, because he knows that now, even though Brian's going to put the Force 2 on the Vanguard column, it means that it's just a little bit less likely that he's just going to lose the game to like a 3 damage rearguard on top of that.
That is true.
Here's the Plon. Force 2 on Van, I expect.
I would also assume as much. No, it's going to go to the rear instead. Looks like he wants to kind of like spread the pressure throughout this board. Keep in mind that Plon's full effect is not active yet, as of course Pierre is still on grade 2, and it requires the opponent to be on grade 3 for its full effect to take place. But you can still cycle cards, set up your soul. But right now, Brian's hand is looking like record low in terms of how he's been playing so far in this tournament. It has been,
as far as Melody goes, for sure.
like, we've seen him draw into so much.
Double cannon.
Cannon into cannon, that is pretty big.
He's rubbing his hands.
Oh, he
Licking
knows.
his lips. He's like, ooh.
Cannon. That's exactly what you're going to be seeing. So the interesting thing about the Force 2 placement, I just want to touch on this real quick, is putting the Force 2 on the rear guard, he knows that Pierre has a Heal Guardian in hand, so that whatever rear guard he puts on that column can just get Heal Guardian to get -2 crit. Whereas by putting the Force 2 on the Vanguard circle, if Pierre tries to -2 crit his Vanguard, he can still drive check more crits and still get some damage in. And so, to me, like, I'd say, knowing your opponent has a Heal Guardian, Force 2 on Vanguard is much tougher for your opponent to deal with than Force 2 on the rear. But we'll see if Brian tries to go for a big setup this turn. The Meep does find Athena, which is absolutely huge. You definitely want to be seeing that when your opponent's going into the grade 3 Loire turn, as we discussed. He only has 1 Sonata available at the moment, though, so his numbers aren't... They're not, like, scary yet. So even though Pierre doesn't have Decrom, we could just see him just hard guarding a bunch of these anyway.
I think he would need to try and mitigate his damage. I think the threshold he would want to take is maybe 1 damage this turn overall. Because Pierre did farm like a really sizable hand due to the Abyssal Owls during early stages of the turn, and he did get to lower down his damage due to the heal trigger. So I think via the Heal Guardian and the excess cards that he was able to draw, I think just taking 1 damage here might be his goal.
Yeah, I totally agree. And something I think is going to be interesting for Brian to consider is he hasn't used Plon's Counterblast 1 Suck into Soul effect yet. And when he does, what's he going to, like, if you think about it, putting a Rearguard into Soul is basically protecting it, right? You keep the Melody effect because of Plon, but then it's no longer on the board to be retired with Luard. And he has 2 things that he wants to protect there. He wants to protect that Cannon in his back row, and he also wants to protect the Sonata in his front row. But only one of them can go into the Soul. The other one's going to have to be on the board to get shot by Luard.
And as Luard, like, which one would you prioritize, actually?
It is really tough. I mean, he's got a Caro, and sorry, there comes another Sonata, so...
Whoa.
Yeah, maybe you just get rid of one of the... Oh my god, another Sonata!
Oh my god!
So,
Double Sonata Soul Charge is exactly what Brian wanted to see there. This is going to add so much power.
I think the answer to that question, JJ, doesn't matter anymore. He's got everything he needs now.
Athena to boot as well, so now the shield power is going to get extra high. Soul Charge the draw into a grade 2 Athena as well. This is looking really good for Brian so far, managing to find all the melody pieces. He's got Caro, he's got multiple Sonatas, he's got the Finas set up as well. I think that if you're Brian, you're definitely happy about how things are going, even though his hand is very fragile right now. And that's my main point of concern, right? He's going to have a crazy offense here, right? It's going to be a super strong turn, but with Pierre's deck, he has a chance to pop one of the intercepts, which kind of reduces the impact of that Fina a little bit. And on top of that, there's going to be a lot of attacks. Pierre's hand is healthy. And when the offensive comes back to Pierre as well, it's going to be a little rough to deal with that for Brian. I think with what? He has like 2 cards in hand now, goes up to 4 after drive check. I don't know, man.
He's just Soul Blasted 3 for the Fina, so he's going to be able to use Cannons effect. So that's a little bit of value he's going to get there. He might go up to 5 because of the on-hit, but we'll see how that goes. But this is something that we were talking about all the time about Prism versus Melody, right? Like, Melody is that slightly higher roll, and we literally just watched the higher roll right here. He soul charged all of his pieces, but he doesn't have much of a hand, so there's not much defense going on. But who needs defense when your soul looks like that?
Yep.
Having everything under the rainbow going for you right now is just really important in this type of matchup.
Yep, so we see their Fina on the screen, that Soul Blast 2, and then for all of this turn, your when attack hits effects activate even if they don't hit. So he Soul Blasted his 2 non-melodies there, and he has got 1 or 2 on hits on the board. I think there's the I can't remember the blue head girl's name, the grade 2. I think that's an on hit, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's an on hit if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I can pop that up for you guys as well because it's a very important on hit. It is an on hit that lets him draw if he has 4 less cards in hand, which is pretty huge in retrospect because it is free, no cost, and with how small that hand is, it's going to be pretty vital too.
And as we just said, he's got 2 cards in hand right now. It's going to go up to 4 with the drive checks. So even when the Vanguard hits, he's still going to get that draw. It's going up to 5 cards in hand.
Yeah, let's keep in mind, he does play 5 draws, so he could find one of them.
Well, he would be on 5 cards in hand anyway, which, 5 is better than 4 when you're staring down 3 force markers.
That is true. That is true.
So we know that Pierre does have the drag heart in hand.
And the heal guard.
Yes, so you can -2 crit the Sonata on the force 2 marker safely. I really like the commit of the Morfessa early on here because in the worst case scenario, it's an interceptor that's 5k shield, and he can always just put it back and bring it into the deck with drag heart to call it again anyway. And if not, it's just a grade 1 on the field that he can retire for drag heart's effect to retire as well. So it's not losing value at any point. But he's going to commit the Heal Guardian. I think is he +10 to Vanguard or is he -2 crit?
I feel like, the draw does get found. So that is a 5, the one and only 5k shield draw trigger that he plays in his deck. So it's not going to be the perfect guard, which is, that's definitely the kind of draw trigger you would have preferred to see here, but he might be holding one in hand as well. That will be a guard from Pierre, but again, we're not sure if that was a -2. I'm assuming as he committed more shield, that could have been just to add to the ritual count in his drop zone, but alternatively, that might have just been a guard with that heal guard plus 10k.
Yeah. And if it is a plus 10k, it kind of signals to me that he might have a second heal guard in hand to -2 crit the Sonata, but he's going to take this, and he doesn't get the heal, but he does get the defensive, which is huge. But I think if the fact that he put the dice on to mark the 10k from the trigger, it was a -2k to Vanguard. And there's the second heal guardian, minus...
Whoa!
Oh.
So all heals are out.
Yeah.
That is... That is big information there that he's just revealed.
I hope this doesn't come back to bite him.
Or it could be that he's just looking to somehow just get that early aggro, say like, okay, here's all, I'm going to put my heals on the table, I'm going to go for it, but knowing that you only have 5 cards in hand, we're playing on the knife's edge here for both players.
I'm just also thinking, like, having to now go into the drag driver, you basically, I guess it's fine because you're going to get rid of your 2 owls here and then be able to still fill up those circles with the drag driver effect. But, I was wondering maybe there would have been a play to set up any form of like just intercepting away the Leofall and opening up that space, because you need grade 1s there anyway, right? That can't be the grade 2 for if you want to use the Morfessa that turn. And we see here, I really like the retire on the Fina, because instead of having to like play around getting rid of, things like the Sonata or like the cards that will intercept, just get rid of the card that enables intercepts, right?
Yeah, and we can see, like, looking at Brian's Soul, he doesn't have... I don't think he has a second Fina, so that
He only plays 2.
Right, exactly. So that's a really, really good pop there. The only issue here that Pierre might be looking at is that, that Leofell is still on the board, so Morfessa is not live, and he's only calling 2 grade 1s with his driver, so he's going to go for an Owl and probably a Karen, I'm expecting.
Most likely. No double Owl. One will be Soul Blasting, one will be Counter Blasting.
Did we see what he put back? Did he put back the Chrome from his drop zone?
I did not catch it, unfortunately.
Yeah, because, as we said, like, 2 10k intercepts from the front row of Decrom, I think is probably not going to make much of a difference anymore, not when your opponent's soul charges double Sonata like that. So I do think throwing caution to the wind is going to be like, okay, no, I'm just going to aggro here, just going to fight back as hard as I can, like, try and match your numbers before you can, and just see how it goes, is probably his best line of play. So he's going to resolve 1 Owl. He's going to counter blast with the second Owl, I think? Yeah, because he wants to keep the Luards in Soul.
Of course, he does need to rewrite into it at the end of the turn after all. And now I want to see what he's going to do with that Leofall, because it is just kind of taking up space and preventing. But the thing is, he doesn't have counterblast anymore anyway for the Morfessa, so he might as well stick it around. The grade 1 count doesn't actually matter as much outside of the power for the drag driver, but he's coming in with huge numbers anyway at this point that it won't make as much of a difference in my opinion.
Exactly, and if nothing else, like, he kind of wants, you don't want to call over it because it is a free 5k shield intercept. He maybe could have used it last turn, but I think based on how we saw him guard, it just wasn't really an economic solution. But we see here that Brandman does have the 5k, there's 3 grade 1s in the drop zone, so these numbers aren't exactly anything to scoff at. Like, there's 4 grade 1s on the board, so that Luard is 28k attacking, and we see that Bryce is going to commit the PG straight away, like, not even worried about the Morfessa coming in. He's just going to say, like, nope, I'm not going to deal with this. Crit comes in is huge.
Alright, no lethal swings yet though, as we don't have enough wards. Confirming how many cards in hand and how many cards in damage here. We are at 3 for both players, and Brian's hand is getting really, really small here. And popping the Fina has stopped a lot of the defense that Brian could output. This is going to be a very important turn for Pierre. What can he find? Another... That's a draw. Okay.
Oh, that's big.
Incredible.
That's really big.
So he's going to stack it all on the Morfessa, which is going to make it 45k with a crit. And like I said, popping that Fina, Brian's lost a lot of defensive powers here. He might not be able to guard that.
He actually might not be able to guard this turn.
Yeah, this Leofell's a little bit smaller. It's only 33k. But, that is, like, still at least 25k
A sizable
shields.
number. A sizable number, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's really wishing he had soul charged a Fina, or even played a 3rd copy right about now.
Yeah, that's for sure. But I think here... they're taking a look at how much damage, how many criticals, how many cards in hand. Everything must be counted here. This is looking good for... I think in Brian's case, you have to essentially guard this one and take the Morfessa, because the Morfessa will not be awarding it won't be receiving any bonus crit yet from the drag driver, so it's only coming in with 2 damage. So you just allow yourself to go to 5, and then
Yeah, I think so as well. Because like
Uh,
the difference between being on 4 and 5 when all of Luwad's Rayguards gain a crit to begin with is super marginal.
So he'll have to intercept if he can here, but I think he only has like 1 interceptor right now, and then
It's not an interceptor he wants to lose either.
Exactly. So you need to find a way to farm 20k shield from here, or hope for defensive draw trigger would be also now too as well.
Yeah,
Or
I think that's the other argument to like taking the crit Morfessa, right? You get 2 chances at finding something that you really need. So he's just gonna hard guard with the Fina, which now gives intercept to his Sonata. He's gonna give it a Sonata anyway. And a trigger, it seems.
Yeah, it looks like a critical trigger here.
Yep.
So that's 25k shield.
Which is exactly enough. Puts him on 38 to 33.
Mhm.
Of course, he's like losing that 5k from the Sonata is pretty devastating because he does have 2 Sonatas in the soul, but the whole point of this matchup is that who can make the bigger numbers. And if you're going to fall behind in the numbers game, that's not a position you want to be in.
That is right. So he will be able to survive, but has to essentially give up everything in order to guard that attack. 1 card left in hand, right?
Yeah, that's right. So he's just confirming that yes, the crit is enough because the Fina gives shield. And then this big Morfessa, which he's probably just going to take and praying for a trigger here.
Well, that's not the trigger he wanted to see there. I was wondering if it's even worth to swing into the Sonata. Like, we talk about how much like this deck relies on setting up these colorful Pastral units, but the thing is that once you take them out of the board, some of these cards are run at lower counts in the deck, and it can become a little bit heavy. He finds the pawn to rewrite, so it'll give me another force 2, but Pierre luckily is at 3 damage, so it's a little bit easier to deal with these for the time being. And he did amass a pretty sizable hand here as well, so it should let him take care of the field at the moment. But Brian, this is your last shot. Soul Charging 2 gets a Caro. That's pretty big.
Not too bad, yep. I mean, I think if you attack the Rearguard Sonata here, I would have just let it go. Like, Brian intercepted with a 5k to begin with, so... And he also guarded with a Fina from hand. So at that point, I would have just kept the Fina and just say, okay, yeah, you can. I'll lose 10k on my columns. But we see him taking it in here just to get another marker. It's probably going to be an Axel 2, I think. Yep, just for the draw. He just needs to recoup that advantage. So draw from the plant and then draw from the Axel. But yeah, he's definitely running out of melody units. Like, we've seen both Finas gone already. A bunch of the Sonatas already in Soul. He does still have the Cannons. So there's still a bit more Soul Charging he can do if he wants to, commit a few more melodies. But no, he's just going to Fina here. Soul Blasting 2. No, Soul Blasting 1 for the Sonata. The Cow Blast on Soul Blast 1, top 5. Yep.
Finds another one.
I mean, that is a good body to swing with. It's going to be quite large. The question is it going to be enough?
Yeah,
we have seen Pierre drive check the draw PG as well.
True. The thing is also, if you can't build columns of 2 of the melody units, they're still big attackers, but suddenly your Caros aren't doing much for you. They only give power for boosting units, so all you're gonna get out of this is a bit of front row power. So it's still, it's still worthy of note, but at the same time, you really do want more out of it, right? You do want more out of it, more push. Again, these players are playing for the first place, being able to say that they are the champions of the EU region BRO 2021 V Premium format. And right now, it's every card played is vital, and every decision has to be carefully calculated.
Yeah, this is the big thing here. Pierre being on only 2 damage, he can either take the Force 2 Rearguard or take the non-Force Rearguard and the Axel marker, go up to 5, and that gives him all the damage he needs for Morfessa. And the critical difference here is that the Morfessa multi-attack is worth way more than the Axel multi-attack because it's got those Force markers behind it, and it's got to have the crit behind it. Whereas Brian, even if he calls any other random melody to the Axel circle, it's going to be 23, 33 at most, which is probably just 1 or 2 cards from Pierre. And we even saw, in the yesterday during the Swiss rounds, we had Melody on stream, and throughout the majority of that game, his Axel circles went unoccupied.
That is true. That is true, and we have to be, like it is strong that you can put a force marker on an axle marker, and it's super strong. But here,
he's going to use the other Sonata.
That's
He
right.
has multiple Sonatas in Soul. You can use each of them once per turn each. He does find a Plon, which is it's a good rewrite, but it's not really a good attacker. And I think when you're on 5 damage, like Brian is, saying like, okay, I'm going to hold this for the rewrite next turn is, I think that's a little bit wishful thinking.
It's a little ambitious, yeah. So I think maybe just putting it down as a rearguard to attack with might be a more prudent strategy.
Yeah, because he can at least, gain the plus 10, 15k from the Sonatas.
Mm-hmm.
But whether or not it's going to make a difference, again, even if it gains 15k, it's still only 28 on the Axel Circle. So he's putting on the Force because he wants the crit pressure. But as we've said, Pierre can just no-guard this, go to 5, and maybe even hit a defensive to help him guard the rest of the swings. So see what he wants to do here.
Stacked soul, though. But I see just a lot of Caros, and again, he picked up the Plon, but he can't make a column out of it. He can't make the threatening, boosts that he wants to see. And instead,
Soul charges a crit. Yeah.
That's not it either. The cards in hand are limited, and this is basically Brian's final push for Pierre. His hand is huge. He doesn't need much damage to do what he wants to do either. And at this point, he's just ready to output his own offensive here. Up next, that is a Serena. The one of Serena that he plays being soul charged, which does again have the same effect on hit if you have 4 less cards in hand, draw a card, but it's shared by all units. Now, what is cool though,
he's committing the other Plons, so that's all of his Plons out, so he's got no more rewrites.
Yeah.
But he is instead opting for just that massive booster on the Force 2 column.
Which you really need. It's so important right now. Serena's skill to count +3 and bounce 3 melodies from your drop back to your hand is pretty huge, but of course, with no CB here, that would have been a perfect skill normally, to replenish this board and have strong boosters, but alas, even without it, he has been able to build up a pretty threatening board here.
Yeah, for sure. But again, don't forget, we know that Pierre has at least 1 draw PG in hand. He also has the crit that he checked, so that's 15k shield that can be used to guard the Axel Circle. Brian's going to Soul Blast here for the Melody for Fina's effect. I think looking to hit the draw off of the Serena, as you said. But Pierre's hand is so stacked. I'd be surprised if Pierre loses here.
But miracles can happen since they are not hitting for smaller numbers to sneeze at. These are 20k power on each lane, so it's gonna be big.
Yeah, he's got all 4 grade 3 Sonatas in circulation, and then 2 of the grade 2s as well. Mm-hmm. So it's gonna be 20k to each column, and then plus an additional 10k.
Exactly. So it could be a situation where he might have a whole bunch of drag drivers, maybe some drag hearts in hand, maybe just some grade 1s and no triggers. We do know that there is no more heal triggers left, so we cannot write out Brian just yet.
Yeah, for sure. Whereas comparison, Pierre is out of heal triggers, so if these damage checks don't go his way, it will be the end of the line.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, sorry, I misspoke. It's not 40 to each column, it's 40 to each unit plus 10. 20 to each unit, so 40 to the column plus 10. So we see that the Plon is absolutely huge. He's putting the 6s on the dice there to indicate 60k. The other column as well, even though it's only got a CL behind it, it's still going to get plus 15, plus 20, so 25. That's 38, plus the 8 is 46. So yeah, Brian's smallest column is a 46 1 damage. And like I said, he wants to be taking potentially the crits. So it's... does he want to take maybe 1 Force 2 and maybe PG the other one? Or is he going to take the 2 non-crit rearguards?
I think here you probably guard all the ones that you can first, and then take the crit rearguard and then PG the Vanguard. It's probably the last alternative. Because I probably expect him to attack in that order.
Oh, hold
on. Take this. Interesting. So I think he's going to go for the line of taking the non-crit rears. So depending on if Brian wants to start with the Vanguard first, he can maybe fish for a crit to put on that Sonata to become lethal.
That's a huge risk you're playing with, because this way you're also forcing yourself to rely on the Charon for the countercharge in that sense too, which does restrict your play choices for the next turn, because suddenly, you know, if you wanted to fish out for like a setup for the bats, if you wanted to fish out for more card draw, or just for like a Loyalis, like you are lacking in that. But there is no critical trigger found from Brian here.
Huge. That means he can take that Sonata on the rear, which is massive, and now he just needs to find a way to guard that Plon column.
That's right. She's coming in with huge amounts of power, absolutely stacked. But the hand on Pierre's side is still at 7 or 8. 7. That should be enough to guard that one attack. But more so for Brian here, I wonder if he wants to just, you know, swing this to Van and then swing to rear and pass, knowing that you cannot win off of this attack. There's a PG in hand that is going to do it.
The second PG is huge. So he does have to guard with the extra card because Brian did use the guard restrict effect.
That is correct.
So
the 2-card guard comes through.
More
and this is the final attack. 4 cards left in Brian's hand on 5 damage. You cannot take any risks here. So we know for a fact that Pierre will have to, after going to the Drag Driver, find a Karen and Soul Blast out, most likely the Luard there, in order to find himself the countercharge for more Fessa.
Yeah, which means he either has to rewrite a Drag Heart to not lose the crit, or he has to also use Driver to search for, say, Nightmare Painter to give him the soul he needs to Soul Blast for Karen.
Exactly.
Both of which are not exactly ideal. Yeah, Nightmare Painter is great, but you want to be using it to set up your bat play rather than just as a vanilla 10k booster. Speaking of the bat play, Pierre has not seen either his Router or hit any of his bats yet. Like, you know, realistically, for that Router play to work, you want Abyss Router in your drop zone to pull back with Morfessa. Same story with bats. We haven't seen a single copy of either of those 3 cards, but he's just guarding everything. Wow. Doesn't even want the damage to play with.
Okay, that is very interesting. Looks like he already thought it out. He knows what he wants to do this turn. He has another Drag Heart that will provide him with the soul that he wants. That will give him the extra force marker as well. This will be the offensive that Pierre was looking for. The Leofall has been chilling there since turn 2. I think this entire board has been mostly sitting there since turn 2. And just like that now, Pierre will be able to use Dragheart Luard's effect in order to find himself the Drag Driver and be able to search out any cards he wants, put back whatever he wants from the drop zone as well.
Yeah. Again, you know, he's splitting the force markers, which implies to me he's going to chase down the 5 attack turn, but we haven't seen any of the pieces for the 5 attack turn. But he's using the Luard first to retire something. I think he's just choosing what to retire. It's going to be the Axel Circle Sonata, which is totally, you know, I think is reasonable. Like, there's no more Finas on the board to retire, so that's the next best choice. He's just counting his grade 1, seeing what he can return, what he wants to return. So the Decrom is still in the drop zone there. He's got 3 Owls out, 2 Karens out, so he's, like you say, he's probably going to have to return one of those if he wants to have any meaningful push. But a bunch of triggers out as well. We're just looking at the split here.
Right.
3 PGs, all 4 heals because 1's in damage, and 3 crits. So this is the problem with Brian. This is the great thing about Brian on being 5 damage, which is that traditionally, when you're against Luard, if you're on 4 damage, you know that your opponent's rear guards is going to have a crit, so you can't take the rear guards. But if your opponent's Vanguard swings at you, sure, it's got 2 drives and it's huge, but you know, it doesn't. It might not have the crit behind it because he has to drive check 1. And if you know that a handful of crits are out of the deck already, you can potentially just brave it and just, you know, if you're on 4 damage, no guard the Drag Driver swing and just go to 5 and hope they don't hit a crit. But now when you're on 5, you're not going to be able to do that anymore. You're going to have to guard everything here.
Mm-hmm. So let's see what he goes for here. He's going to send Decron back. Looks like he's eyeing it. It's a possibility he might want to go for.
Yeah, this is the one downside of Luard is that it only puts back 2 units, and you want to put back a load of units. So he's going to put back the Decrom and the Karen. You know, as we said, the Karen is absolutely necessary here if he wants to have any meaningful turn. So now he can afford to Soul Blast one of his Luards if he needs that countercharge from the Karen, if he doesn't want to be searching for a Nightmare Painter. So he's going to search for one of the Swells. And what's his... He gets 4 searches here, so that's 2 out of 4. You have 2 more units. He's probably going to call over the Liefeld just for numbers. There's the other Suels. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
And what I especially like is the first Suels, behind the Morfessa. So he can swing in with a 40k Morfessa first, which is already hard enough to guard, and then whatever comes out from the Morfessa then gets the plus 20k from the Suels, which, if he is going to try and chase down that bat play, is really relevant.
You know, what I really want is someone to walk up to, to company officials and ask them the real pronunciation for Luels, Swells, Lualis. How is a card written? It's those Shadow Paladin spellings.
Yeah, so I actually looked this up. It comes from Welsh mythology.
Okay.
So it's like, I'm not Welsh, so I can't pronounce it quite well, but it is an S instead of the LI.
Okay, well, Swells it is. In that case, we see that this is going to be a very strong offensive turn because, of course, the Swells is going to be able to gain the 15k on its own. Morfessa will create another attack, use the Karen excellently here as well. And we can see that Brian back against the wall, very few cards in hand as well. And he needs to be careful to make sure, like, one thing is that we have not seen too many heals yet on Brian's side. Neither Soul charged a couple, but I think they are still in circulation in his deck.
Mm-hmm. So he's going to be taking the first attack here with Morfessa for 40. This is going to just keep on ramping up every single time now. So it's going to be first one for 40, probably get a Swells and drop or any other countercharger or any other draw resource here. You could even get an Owl if you wanted it to. Of course, he'd end up losing a whole lot of other stuff because of it, but I think there's like a Bronwyn and drop that he can get as well. So it's like so much extra resources that he can just like dig into for later.
Yeah, one thing I think about here is that, so Pierre hasn't chased down the 5-attack combo with Bats or the Rooter, so there could maybe even an argument for Vanguard first. Your opponent's on 5 damage, that Vanguard swing needs to be guarded.
Yeah.
Any triggers you get can then be powered up with the Morfessa. That way it becomes, you don't need to, the fact that you're not boosting Morfessa means that the Morfessa attack, this first attack, is the weakest and is the easiest to guard. So any draw trigger, heal, like crit trigger, power to Morfessa, crit to the Swells, that could have made Brian's life even harder, as opposed to say, we know that Brian's used up 2 PGs already. He still might have 1 more. If you make that massive column and you put the triggers on that massive column, whatever Morfessa pulls out, it's going to be 20 from the Swells, 50 from the Force Markers, so probably 63 if it's a Branwen.
He's rolling his hands for
The heal trigger. Amazing!
The heal trigger comes through. It's just as I mentioned earlier, there is still hope within that deck here. He even was like rubbing his hands, he was ready, but there is a second check to come through. Does he find the double heal? Does find it! Heal. He manages to survive. I knew we've been seeing very few heals so far, but even with that plus 20k to the Vanguard, is there a way to survive? Like, these attacks are ginormous.
Yeah, because like if you look at the other column, that Swells is 20, 30, 40, 53. This Luard is massive. It's 28, 30, 39k on the Luard because 11 from the Karen. He's not be able to use the other Karen to become 11, but that's still 58k with a crit on the rear. Like, these, you're still gonna have to guard all of these attacks no matter what.
Yeah.
And he's only 33k, so 33 against, what do you say, 28 plus 11 is 39. That's still 10k for a 1 to pass. And Pierre's seen all of his heals and he's seen a lot of his draws, but there's still a good 3 or 4 crits left in that deck. And we know that he's been deck thinning because he's got Owls.
That is right. And now Brian's hand is still awfully low here. Swinging with such huge swings all around the board. If he had a triple Swells, to call off the Morfessa there as well, would have been definitely secured with that high attack power. But I think Brian still has 3 cards to play with. No Fina in play to add to the defense. He's just checking his damage. He's like, dude, are there any more heals? Is there anything else left to pray for? He's already been blessed by the 6 damage heal twice this game. And he's going to have to take it seems. That's what I'm reading from his body language.
He's like, no guard, I guess. No guard, take it to chest.
Here we go. First check, critical trigger. Pierre dealing an additional damage with the Luard and the Branwen. There's another 2 checks for Brian, and that is going to be it. There were still heals left at the bottom, but Pierre takes it all, and he is your Bushiroad Rumble Online 2021 EU B Premium Champion with Luard.
The last heal was in Brian's hand. He was just saying, like, yeah, I can guard the rear guards with crit, but not the Vanguard, unfortunately. So that'll be it.
Ooh, what a hard-fought battle by both players. Pierre, he, with all the pressure that it was being output by Brian, those huge attacks, those huge columns, he was fishing for every melody piece he could. Even then, it wasn't enough to dent the defense that Pierre had. The droppages he had, those were so huge in those specific moments in that last turn. I was even wondering, like, why did he guard the last one? Like, why did he guard the last attack? When he could have just taken it, but he wanted to just make sure he's safe. They're also approaching time, so in case that becomes a factor, you want to remain at lower damage in case it comes down to that. Both players played excellently, and that was an incredible finals, to send off the V Premium format, off to NA later on to watch their top 8 as well. We got to see so many exciting games. We got to see Messiahs, Vanquisher, all kinds of Bermuda decks with all kinds of different techs, Gavriel. Like, there's so many amazing things that have, happened in this top 8, and there's still more to come with the NA tournament. I can't wait to tune into it. But once again, huge congratulations to Pierre for his amazing showing.
Yeah, absolutely incredible game. And again, harking back to what I say about V Premium, it's all about, now that you know what you want to do and you have that line forward, it's just about how you maneuver and weave yourself into that situation to get there. And I think the two big factors that play into this game here are, one, Pierre's very balanced judgment of that early game tempo. He got rushed because he had going second. You're definitely going to lose the tempo going second, but he made a Morfessa board. He had Leofel on the board, which you saw doing work for a lot of the game, and he was just able to keep toe-to-toe with Brian on the aggro there. But also, I think the other big factor was just Brian's choices, the fact that he only had 2 Fina to play with, and when Pierre retires one, there goes half of your defensive plays in the deck, and he had to guard the other one from hand to be able to intercept with the Sonata to barely guard that rear guard column. So the fact that Pierre had the options to go, okay, you only have 2 Fina, so you're giving up some defensive options, so I'm just going to shut down your defensive options, and now we're just going to play mano a mano, fist versus fist, and unfortunately for you, my fist is a little bit bigger.
Yeah, of course, since you're able to curve out into the later stages of the game, since, as we mentioned before, stumbling on one turn can oftentimes be detrimental, and losing any party defensive options like Fina, that we saw earlier that he had to use as just guard to activate a lot of his intercepting abilities to get extra shielding for it. That was one of the only other ways of him being able to deal with that at that point in time, sadly. And that was one of the big turning points, I thought, what had happened in that matchup.
Yeah, exactly. And credits to Brian. His deck did what he set out to have it do. He soul charged everything. He had massive columns on his rear guards, but Pierre just had the PGs at the right time, and it just couldn't amount to anything in the end.
Yeah, that was just, he had the defense he needed. He had the answers that he was looking for at the right moments. And I think for Pierre, I really want to hear from him in the interview, his whole tournament run. What did he face? What did he struggle against? His Swiss, right? He wasn't undefeated. What did he drop a game against? Because we saw him play so well during this finals, but I just want to know, what did he struggle against? How did he prepare for this event? Because especially with his list, it's so teched out. It has so many different win cons, not just the bats, right? We talked about it earlier too. He's also playing that, the one of Abyss Router that just, man, I feel like there's so many angles towards deck building and deck building philosophy that he must have taken too, and I really want to hear more from his choices going into this event.
Because it's very refreshing to see a bunch of different takes on known strategies, what we've seen with Prism, what we've seen with other archetypes that we've seen during this whole entire tournament, that even though V Premium has been around since 2018, that a whole lot of decks can still be changed, innovation can still be had, and I'm all about that. I like when people, pull themselves up by their straps, got their suspenders on, and they're still gonna go. I love it.
Of course. Let's also talk about the journey that Pierre has taken throughout today to get to where he is now. So he has become the champion, but he started off all the way in top 8, going up against Mervin. That was, his first taste of the Bermuda Triangle matchup. Of course, it was completely different. It was Prism, Mervin from Singapore. He put up a fight, but Pierre did emerge victorious. And then, looking at the other side of the bracket, you were either fighting against Messiahs or you were going to be up against the world champion. And both of those are not easy matchups. He had to go up against Tufshin Tulga. And of course, he managed to win that match as we managed to catch the last bit of that top 4 as well. And of course, both players looked really good. We saw Tufshin Tulga had to G-assist. That might have been part of, what helped Pierre build up more momentum. And that took him all the way to the finals against Brian, where they fought to the nail. It was so close until the very last moment, and he was able to take it over Brian and become the champion for this region.
Yeah, and Luad especially, we said this in Premium, and we're going to say it in V as well, because it's just relevant, but Luad is one of those decks where you can build it in any way, which way. Do you want to run this option? Do you want to run that option? It's not quite the same as having 4 different grade 3 options like we have in Premium, but do you want to play Bats? Do you want to play Router? Do you want to commit to this line? Do you want to commit to that line? How many Decron do you play? How many Owl do you play? It's just super cool how different players with their own different takes on it. And we know that Pierre is a Shadow Paladin fan. We saw his little shrine. His deck is almost maxed out, and for him to say, okay, this is what I think is correct. This is what I think is the best, and to come up against decks like Prism, which people are saying is one of the best decks in the format, to come up against Tufshin Tolga, who is a very, very, was able to play to his high roll Messiah and go for the burstment combo, and to be able to survive that and still go for it, I think it really is a testament to both him in his deck building skill and the fact that he knows, okay, my deck has this, I'm gonna play towards this.
Because it's it's one of those things that you need to consider as well. When playing in tournaments like this, Ben mentioned this earlier. Consistency is always going to be really good key here. What was the phrase you use a whole lot? Low floor, high ceiling is what you use a lot of the time when describing decks like these. Sometimes.
Yeah, Luad has always been one of those decks that has a very, very good consistency, right? It's some people play Knee, some people play Branwen, but of the decks that play quote unquote irregular ratios, Luad is one of those ones that can go from 1 to 3 relatively safely, and it can find its pieces pretty much all the time. You have Leofel to search for Owl to draw cards. You have Karen for countercharge. You can, when you hit Drag Driver, you're guaranteed to search for all the pieces you need to combo off. So in terms of the floor, Luad is a very, very high floor, but it also has an incredibly high ceiling, because the longer the game goes, the more force markers you get, the closer you are to reaching that point where your opponents to say, I cannot guard anything and just take all of it, compared to, say, Melody, which has to soul charge its pieces, has to find the right Melody units, has to have the Meep to search, Meep and the CL to search for its other melodies. Do you use the Counterblast 1 to put this into Soul? Do you use the Counterblast and Soul Blast 1 to search top 5 off of the Sonata? When you get those Sonatas, like we saw Brian do, you have plus 20k to your units, plus 30, 40k to your columns, it can be way better. It's the same as having 4 force markers on that column, but the way you get there is a lot harder.
Yeah, it was... Man, it's been a crazy run. I think for a lot of us, everyone involved in the tournament, whether you were playing, watching, judging, staffing, producing the stream, it's been such a crazy run, right? I think we've seen so many incredible games, so many emotional moments, and also just I want to spend a little moment to give you special thanks to everyone that helps put on the show here, who helps run the event. Shout outs to Elephant for a lot of, these beautiful visuals you see, the card pop-ups, the deck list features. Make sure you say thank you to Elephant. They are the production team, as well as the hosts for the NA and AO region. But of course, you see the lovely little logo there, the beautiful handsome face at the bottom, ENTCG. Make sure you give your thanks. Just a wall of hearts right now in the chat for ENTCG for being amazing hosts of the EU regions event, for their incredible bot, as well as, of course, for producing this stream as well, and bearing with us, the very demanding commentators, always like, show this game, show this deck, show this player, give me this, give me that, I need to show this, the world needs to see this, and for bearing with us at all times. We couldn't be more grateful, and we can't wait to be even more demanding when we come back for Standard in 4 weeks as well.
Yep, for sure. And while we're just setting up for the winners interview here in just a moment, I just want to remind everyone, we still have the hashtag going on, hashtag BRO2021. Do tweet us out, your deck lists, how your tournament went, your favorite moments on the stream, anything along those lines. We want to see it. There's still 2 more weeks as well. Remind everyone, next month in January after the new year, we have the standard tournament as well as Weiss Schwarz. So the action doesn't end yet.
That is right. I can't wait for the standard one. It's time to start playtesting already. Although again, it's like, last week I was like, I want to play premium, but I need to test V. And I'm like, I want to play V in premium, but I need to test standard. It's this just, there's too many amazing ways to enjoy Vanguard. This Vanguard 02, I'm ready to just like, get down and start testing other new decks there as well. But with all that being said and all the different ways that we can enjoy this lovely franchise, we actually have an interview ready with Pierre, our champion for today's BRO event. We're just waiting for him to prepare his camera here.
Hello.
There we go. All right, let's transition here into our interview scene. So just hang on with us as the production is getting ready to cue everything in. But we will have Pierre on the line here in just a few seconds. I can't wait to hear from him. Of course, this is, if you're a European player that's been to BCSs, been to Springfests, this is someone that you must be super familiar with, as they are no stranger to the top tables. They have definitely been here before, done this before, and have come out on top many, many times. So we're going to just wait 1 second for our production team to make sure that we can have him, nice, beautifully featured at the front for you guys as well. We're almost ready to get into the interview. Of course, there's plenty that we want to ask him, plenty that we want to discuss with him. Many congratulations to be shared, especially, and I'm sure, the local community must feel especially proud being able to see him come out on top all the way here. We're still waiting for a signal from our production team as they are getting ready to have this interview up for you guys.
That's right. So then we also couldn't take the time out as well to thank the viewers too, right? Because without the viewers, we also wouldn't have any of this going on today, right? Because without the viewers, we wouldn't have any awesome feature message to show you guys, any awesome content to bring you guys, and any awesome information. So be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, to the official YouTube channel of Cardfight Vanguard. Watch any new Overdress episodes that do come out, and tune in to any other Bushiroad content that might be put up there on the YouTube channel as well. And it's always been really good.
That's right. That's right. I'm really looking forward to it. Don't forget, of course, new anime episodes. We have new Overdress coming through on Mondays now. It's very exciting. The anime is at its peak right now as well, so it's super, super exciting. So definitely check out the official socials, the the Twitter, the Facebook, the Instagram. I think they have a TikTok too, and of course the YouTube channel, most importantly, because this is most likely where you'll be catching the VODs of the tournament over the coming weeks.
So then for Overdress, Ben, what do you think is probably going to be one of the better decks of the format to probably look into?
Oh, hold that question, JJ. We have a champion.
Let's go. Welcome, Pierre. Thank you for waiting, and welcome. Congratulations on your victory, man.
Thank you.
How does it feel? How does it feel to be number one, the first place in Europe for V Premium?
It kind of feels unreal, I have to say, because I never won myself alone, so I'm really happy about it.
Yeah, it must feel incredible. And man, like, you had such an incredible journey. Your top 8 was challenging, having the first matchup being up against Prisms, then running into Messiahs, and then finishing it off with Melody. It was quite a diverse set, but I want to know, like, how was your entire tournament experience, like, both yesterday and today? Like, what challenges did you face, especially in day one? Because I think you lost 1 time, right?
Yeah, I lost 2 times.
Okay.
I played against like 3 Angel Fever. I won all of them. Then I lost against my opponent in finals in the second to last round. And I also lost my last round against was it a Prism? as well.
Ooh,
So yeah,
okay.
I played against a lot of Bermudas and Angel.
Yeah, I could see that. And it must feel nice, you got the revenge match against your opponent in the finals. So you got to play again against Brian. How did it feel, to get that kind of like data and information about his deck and his playstyle in Swiss and then use that information in the finals again?
Well, it was really useful, I do think, because yes, we can see with the deck check open deck list, the deck list of our opponent. But yeah, without going and knowing that he played like two final, I think,
Yeah.
grade 3, so it was really useful because I knew I had to try to redirect them with Luard,
And we
I
saw.
kind of saw his playstyle as well. Yeah, that
Mm.
was very.
And that was very important in the finals too. We saw that, after he took out that Fina, we were all saying like, oh, there's only one more left. It's not in the
Mhm.
soul. So that
Mhm.
huge guard power that the deck has was suddenly shut down. So you played that matchup super, super well. JJ, do you have any questions you'd like to ask as well?
So as a deck technician myself, and I love tinkering around with deck ideas and you know concoctions that people come up with. What was the reason of playing instead of 3 Abyssal Bat or playing 3 Abyssal Owls? Why did you play that one Abyssal Router?
So Abyss Router, I played it a few months back
Mhm.
in Europe, and it really helped me for because at the time I didn't play Abyssal Owl.
Mhm.
So and because of playing only 2, and it doesn't seem like it, but Abyssal
Apocalypse Bat.
Apocalypse Bat, sorry, yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
It's a setup to have, like you have to have 2 in drop zone, you have to have the Nightmare Painter to put in the soul. And if my opponent's at 5, Abyss Router is just better.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
I don't have to call everything to crush them afterward. I can only call big bodies and then attack the Vanguard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. No, I definitely think it's like we were saying in the roll up to the finals, your deck list was a little bit non-standard. There's a few things I like only 3 driver. I'm not a fan of the 4th driver,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm also not a fan of 4 Branwen. But we saw it working out for you. Hitting that drag heart, the second drag heart you need for the
Yeah.
rewrite, so that you can soul blast for the Karen without losing 2 crit. It does work out in the end. Something I want to focus on is in the finals. As you say, you may have said that this is your first major victory, but you've never really come first place in Eventful. But at the same time, like Chris said, we recognize your face. Anyone in Europe has seen you traveling all over Europe for BCSs and Springfest and the like. You're no stranger to the tournament circuit. But one thing is really impressive is when you go through tournaments like that, there's a certain mentality you have to be able to clutch the win. And one thing I want to especially highlight on is the first 10 minutes of that finals, right? We saw you saw all 4 Heal Guardians by turn 3, and your opponent goes turn 3, right Plon, Soul Charge 3 Sonators and a Caro. To have 2 double whammies going everything wrong for you. How do you keep your cool and come back to a victory like that?
Well, I saw all the Guardian in my hand, and I knew I was second, so why not keep them and I try to take as low damage as I can in early game. But it's great free that give 2 cards, 2 cards.
Mhm.
It's really destroyed my plane. But yeah, just if I lose, I lose. I was telling this myself, so I would have been second. It would have been great already. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's
Alright.
no, you heard it from the man himself. I also want to ask, you're saying it would have been fine to come second, but how does it feel to take of those promotional chrono jets home? You're going to be the only one in this region with 4 of the that really exclusive, the VMC chrono jet prize. How does it feel, to be the first place and take that prize home as well?
Well, I love to play Gear Chronicles, so there you go.
Hey.
They're definitely
Perfect.
being sleeved up, is what we're hearing, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, I can't wait to see the next V Premium event. We're gonna feature your deck list. Gonna be 4 of the Wooders Chrono Jet in the deck as well. Man, that must feel amazing as well. I want to also ask just your opinion as well of, V Premium has changed a lot with the addition of Heal Guardians, right? And we've seen a lot of people have these expectations of oh, like this deck like whether it's like Luard or Prisms or Gavros, like, yeah, everyone's gonna play it. It's gonna, be the number one. But throughout all the regions, we saw so much variety, so many different decks, and so many different, ideas coming into the top 8. What do you think of just the current VPrim, after the addition of Heal Guardians and just of this current format in general?
So right now the format is really good, I think. Maybe there are 1 or 2 exception, but with Il Guardian, it's really fair, I would say. Yeah, and even the idea of not playing Il Guardian because you want 20k shield is really good. I saw 1 or 2 of my opponents who played them, and it really came in clutch for them at some times. So yeah, the inclusion of Il Guardian really balances the game, and it helps for deck building as well.
Absolutely.
Very well put. I think couldn't have said it better myself.
Really good answer,
yeah. Once again, I think it's another congratulations. I think all of them are deserved, especially if someone as of your caliber finally has that big one under his belt. Must feel incredible. Again, like all the journey you went through to get here. I think it's pretty much everything everything we expect in a champion. I think is the best way of putting it. So I think we're just gonna wrap it up and say, have you got anything else you want to shout out? Anything you want to say to anyone?
Yes, I actually, shout out to Team Ghost. They are my friends, and they're waiting eagerly for Pursuit Assault. So yeah, in English version. So that's it. Thank you.
And that is the champion himself. And just to wrap up as well, do you have any word to the viewers, who've been cheering you on from home, watching the live stream, watching your games and cheering on for you to win it all? Just any kind of like words to them as well?
Well, I can only say thank you. That's all. Thank you for everything, for putting up with me, with my 2 losses in the last round. So yeah.
There you have it. Of course, once again, huge congratulations, Pierre. You did incredibly, taking Lord, the only Lord in top 8, going all the way and winning the entire event. It must feel amazing, but I'm sure you must also be exhausted after those back-to-back-to-back games. And they were so incredible to watch for us as commentators and be part of your story, of your narrative as a Vanguard player for all these years. So once again, huge congratulations. You truly deserved it, and please enjoy your prizes and enjoy, the glory of the first place as well.
Thank you to all 3 as well, and see you again another year, maybe.
Yeah, hopefully at another event.
Events soon.
Yeah.
Definitely soon.
Here's praying, man. Thank you so much, Pia. Enjoy your win. Enjoy your rest now as well. You did incredibly, and we're all also proud of you for presenting Europe here as well for the BRO V Premium stage.
Thank you again.
Okay. All right. So that's going to be it for Pierre. We're going to come back to us here to send you guys off. So thank you so much once again, Pierre, and congratulations. But now for the production side, we will go back to our, just the 3 of us. Just the 3 of us to send you off for the rest of this event. And oh my god, there's a huge JJ once again. How does this happen every single time?
I don't know, but you can now see the future if you watch my forehead. It's right there.
Oh my god.
You can see your future.
For a brief moment. If you didn't see it, you missed it. It's over.
But, that was exhilarating, guys. I had a whole lot of fun today. Casting all of these with you guys, I've always been fun. And especially today, I think in comparison to Premium and V Premium, I think I can't even choose which one was better to watch as a finals. I think both of them were fun. Both of them had very technical plays that you had a whole lot of. You can't chalk up to luck. A lot of people chalk up Vanguard to luck, and there was very little to almost no luck to be had in any of these games. It was just they knew what the win condition was and they just went for it. That's what all they went for. That's all that happened.
Yep. Their caliber of play, these players, they were incredible. It was such a treat to watch them. It's been 2 weeks of incredible action. There's still the NA stream as well. But don't forget, guys, in 4 weeks, we have this standard tournament. Sign-ups will open the week before, and I want to see as many of you there as possible. I'll be playing in NA again. I came pretty close to topping yesterday for V. Surely we can run it back for standard. It's time. Casters are here to take 8s too.
Same.
Yeah, Ben, any closing thoughts on your side as well?
Yeah, I mean, V Premium has always been one of those ones that for the longest time, even when it was just Premium versus V, it was kind of like, the less favored child in a way. And then Overdress came along for Standard, and V Premium again, being that middle child, a lot of people would be right in saying like, it gets a little bit less love than Standard or Premium, but we see here like people are coming out, they're playing decks that we know are good. They're playing decks that some people might say, oh, this maybe not be as good, like we saw with Nuno and Vanquisher, and it just goes to show you that at the end of the day, there is still a little bit of skill involved in V. Like, it's about, like you say, seeing
a lot of skill,
seeing what you need to do and getting there. And it's anything can happen. Like, we saw a lot more G assists in V than we did in Premium, but sometimes they made a difference, sometimes they didn't. But at the same time, we also saw things that you wouldn't have expected to see that you would have in Premium. Like, for example, massive early guarding or huge early aggro, like we saw in the finals. And just these little decisions here and there can really stack up and have a knock-on effect compared to, like, say, Premium or Standard, where, yep, this is going to happen, and you just have to roll with the punches.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because it is like a very expected situation of, since you do have the open deck list, it is sort of like spelt out for you, but like knowing whether your opponent knows what to do in a given situation based on their practice, their experience, their overall game knowledge is what separates the good players from the better players, right? That allows you to see who's the cream of the crop, more or less.
Yep, absolutely. And just to close out, I saw a beautiful tweet on the BRO 2021 hashtag. I think wraps up the entire thing. So Megon_Dagonic or M Dagonic is their @ wrote, favorite BRO 2021 moment. Different fight saying, if I would open Volko turn 1, I would only play Messiah. And then he says, great games on stream, great commentating, never enjoyed V more than this weekend. And I think that is a beautiful comment to wrap things up on, because I can honestly say the same. Like, yesterday, whether commentating throughout the Swiss or playing in the NAs, the 9 rounds of Swiss, that was some of the most amazing games I've had. Like, every opponent, it made me realize that while, people play in these competitions to win, and they play, for various reasons, to win, to get the prizes, to get featured on stream for their wacky deck builds and all those kind of things, it made me also realize that for me, the number one most important part of a tournament is communication. The laughs and the exchanges that you have with all your different opponents, and the way that you're just your human exchange kind of manifests throughout a card game is something so precious, right? While card games are a hobby and they are a game that we all play, they're also a form of communication, right? They are a communication tool that bring us closer. They allow us to play with people and meet people from other sides of the world, and even if we don't speak the same language, we can still convey our emotions throughout a simple card game, right? And that is something that is magical, beautiful. And just by playing yesterday, I really appreciated that aspect, and like being able to have so many amazing exchanges with all the different players. And I think that, if you need another push in order to sign up for the upcoming BRO events, then let that be it, because it really is an incredible experience, and you're going to meet some amazing people throughout these tournaments. So, boys, any last things before we close out and send people off for 4 weeks to enjoy Christmas and New Year's and the NA top 8?
I would like to or just amen, brother Chris, amen. Thank you for that sermon. That was a very good speech, good words for the masses. It was really well done. A whole lot of fun. Play Vanguard, guys. I'm actually in the mood to play some Vanguard after this, to be honest. I kind of want to slap some cards and turn my card sideways against people's faces. It has been a great experience. I still got this
right on my table right here. I finished my rounds yesterday, went to bed. I was like, all right.
For this Bushiroad Rumble Online, I have nothing else to say. Is have fun playing Vanguard, and Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays. Happy Holidays. Best of holidays to you.
What they said.
Vanguard good, yes.
Vanguard good. And make sure to give some love to everyone involved. Bushiroad socials. Check out the boys as well, at GG Mr. Rogers. Make sure to give him some love. He's got a Twitter, he's got a Twitch, he's got all kinds of things. You want to see a great and wholesome Vanguard streamer, you better go check this man out right now. Check out at Yellowcard Vanguard. There are multiple people running that channel. Make sure you check out Zistral. Make sure you check out Toku, Tony and Ben together, forces combined for Yellowcard Vanguard. Make sure you give them all the love, and everyone involved. Make sure you have a great time, a great Sunday, and enjoy your time playing this wonderful game. On that note, though, that's going to be it for us today. There is still the NA stream coming up, so make sure you tune into that. But otherwise, we will see you in 4 weeks for the standard event. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for tuning in to these amazing 2 days of V Premium action. And we'll see you guys in the new year.